control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all connected but separated, misunderstood and so frustrated. A million armies of one have invaded, watching you and watching me. We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. We the people have taken over. We the people are little brother, standing by to dethrone each other, watching you and watching me. Paranoid, the lens is our weapon, desensitized in our lust for attention, democratized by our voyeur obsessions, watching you and watching me. Slaves to perfection, don't let them project you as you are. Reveal your every flaw. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Stay in line, don't make a mistake. We're watching. We watched you for so long. We wait for you to fall. We will expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Let your experience begin right now. From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio. You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on Twitter, @SpacedOutRadio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can follow us on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Let us play with all our toys. They let us think that we're big boys. They let us make the louder noise, but women rule the world. They let us think we're Superman, that we're the only ones who can be strong, but we break on command, cause women rule the world.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride as we are live on Spaced Out Radio.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Said the deeper I go, the deeper I fall.
Good evening and welcome to Space Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, and it's good to have you along for the ride as we are just 2 sleeps away from Santa Claus coming to your town. Thank you for taking part wherever you are on this great planet we call Earth. We are live right here in Uncle Jimbo's cabin, right here in the Great White North on this Friday night, early Saturday morning, right here on the west coast of Canada. Let's welcome in everyone listening in on the Spaced Out Radio's website, spacedoutradio.com, on Spreaker, on the United Public Radio Network, the High Plains Talk Radio Network, and on Revolution Radio. We do this thing every night of the week as we rock in and out of every show, thanks to our resident guitar god, Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal, formerly of Guns N' Roses, currently of Art of Anarchy. Yes, Bumblefoot is the official sound of SOR. Talked to him moments ago, says to wish everyone in Spaced Out Radio Land a very Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download this show and others on iTunes. And our website is spacedoutradio.com. Hey, if you want to take part in this show, you'll have to sign into one of the many chat rooms that follows us. A plethora of chat rooms. Right here on Revolution Radio, on Spreaker, on the UPRN chat room, and on Facebook. You got to sign up for the SOR Space Travelers Club. Or if you're on Twitter, use hashtag Spaced Out Radio. I will get to your questions and comments right there as well. If you go to our website, you need to sign up for the SOR Space Travelers Club. It's only $5 a month, and with that, you get access to private group interviews, access to a special section on our website, and so much more. Hey, we're going to give you a hell of a lot more than just access to our archives. While there, you can check out our latest blogs. You can read up on SOR's Spacewire by your news director, Eric Markham, and of course, if you've had an experience that you cannot explain, you're wondering what to do about it, fill out an SOR Sightlines report. Our researcher, Mike Schmidt, his goatee and all, is willing to do the dirty work for you. Sign up and fill it out today. We want to thank everyone listening in on Revolution Radio. It is the largest nonprofit online station going today. Do me a favor. Visit freedomslips.com and donate today. And we want to say hello to everyone listening in on the United Public Radio Network, live on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. Good to have you along for the ride. Hey, this is our final show before we head off into the weekend and take a mini Christmas break around old Uncle Jimbo's cabin. So after this one, I'm turning out the lights, heading up to the highest peak I can find to watch Santa fly through the northern lights tomorrow night. The beauty of living near the top of British Columbia is that you just get to see everything. The snow is falling, and we are prepping for a beautiful white Christmas around the Scott compound. But before we head out for the holiday weekend, I want to make sure I pass along a heartfelt thank you and Merry Christmas to all our nightly listeners. In 2016, you really helped us launch into a broadcasting stratosphere that many in this field can only hope for. I am very indebted to all of you taking your special time to spend it along with me, along with James and Liz on the weekends. You've made this year very special, so please accept our heartfelt thank you and gratitude, because it really is a pleasure to broadcast live to you on a nightly basis. Yes, it's hard work, but we love doing it. From Australia to North America and everyone in between, please be safe this Christmas season, and I look forward to spending Monday night with you with Butch Witkowski on as my guest. So tonight, we round out the week talking paranormal, and longtime investigator Vanessa Hogle is one of those people who's been able to stay true to herself when it comes to investigating spirits and hauntings. In today's day of paranormal, her attitude and way of doing things is more the exception than the rule, sad to say. She chooses to investigate this way because of the politics that seems to have taken over this field of research. Vanessa will tell you firsthand there's an extreme amount of talent out there, but it's the goals that aren't being accomplished, or the evidence that isn't being shared, that is driving this culture literally into the ground. Vanessa wants her research to be taken seriously as she tries to find her own personal answers to what's going on, and is there an afterlife? Two very defining questions that everyone in this industry should be trying to solve. Paranormal, though, has become ego-driven and sadistic in its way of conducting research. Tonight, we open up that can of worms and much more in the scope of the paranormal. We bring Vanessa Hogle into Space Out Radio Land now. Vanessa, thank you so much for being on SOR. Merry Christmas to you, and thank you for doing this so close to the Christmas break.
Oh, you are very welcome, and Merry Christmas to you and yours as well. And yeah, it's okay. You know what? I had a free day for once. So this was probably the only day you were going to get me.
Well, I do appreciate it, because I know you work hard. I know you are someone who's not only a single mom and a paranormal investigator, but you work 2 full-time jobs trying to make a good life for yourself. So you're a hard worker, and you should be commended for what you do as well. So thank you for sharing everything we do here with your listeners, the people who follow you, and for you taking time to share your stories with us. That's just amazing.
Oh, thank you very much, and right back at you. I was very excited to come on here tonight. I'm very excited about what we're going to talk about, because I hold it near and dear to my heart. It's very important to me that people understand what I consider the right reasons for doing something like this, as far as spirit communication and paranormal investigation and anything that falls into that realm. I want it so desperately to be taken seriously. And unfortunately, as you stated, that isn't always the case because of the amounts of ego and fame hungry, hungriness that seems to be just polka dotting the whole surface of people out there. And it's awful to me. It hurts my heart. Because, if you don't mind me going ahead and explaining why.
I would love you to.
I have done this in one way or another my entire life. I've never not been in a time in my life where I wasn't contacted by spirits. Since a wee little girl, it's been a part of who I am. And it boggles my mind that people can't understand that so many times somebody like myself, or somebody like some of the other more spiritually minded people that I know, when we're not contacted by famous people. We're not contacted by anybody that's going to give us any type of notoriety. What we're contacted by is somebody in need of closure. We're contacted by somebody who desperately wants to get a message to a loved one, or wants a loved one who is not deceased, to know that, hey, they're okay. That's what they want. or they just want acknowledgement after who knows how long of time of being almost, not to use a biblical term, but in limbo. And it's such a on a human level that I wish people would bring this down to, instead of, oh, am I going to get something that's good enough to get me on TV? I don't care. I don't care. I don't care about TV. I don't care about getting a show. I don't care if it makes me popular. I don't care if I get Michael Jackson coming through on a EVP. I don't care. What I care about is helping whomever is trying to contact me, and whomever they're trying to contact me for. And I think that's what we've gotten away from. And it's heartbreaking. It truly is.
Before we get into this deep subject, and it's going to be deep, I want to play a game with you tonight.
Okay.
If you don't mind.
I don't mind.
Because there's a little game that we play around here with our listeners. Our favorite word around Spaced Out Radio is plethora.
Okay, I love that word.
So they've started a drinking game here, okay, in like the 4 chat rooms and on Twitter that follows us, because apparently I use the word plethora a lot. So let's see how many times we can just slip it into conversation tonight.
Oh, I can do that.
Let's do that. A plethora of plethoras for tonight. Let's see how much fun we can have with that. All right. Before we get heavy into this subject, I want to warm things up here. Let's learn a little bit about who Vanessa Hogle is. Now, you're someone who says you have had these experiences your entire life. This is something you are very familiar with. It's something that has really encrusted and ingrained itself inside of you. Were you a childhood contactee of sorts where the paranormal just came to you, or was this something that you learned a little bit later on in life?
Well, that's actually, that's a multi-layer question, and I'll tell you why. Okay, I have had the experiences my whole life, a plethora, you might say, of experiences my whole life. Starting at about the age of 2. Right before I was to turn 2 years old on March 14th, my grandmother, whom I was born on her birthday, she died on February 5th. She was the first that I can recall coming to me. Quite possibly happened before then, but that's my first actual memory. And she used to come to me and we would have tea. That's what we would do. A plethora of tea, honestly. And that was a very comfortable experience. I'm very lucky that my first experience was so comfortable, was so, family oriented, and I was not afraid. It does turn out that this runs in my family. This is not something that is unbeknownst to others in my family pool. But I did, when I was a little bit later on in life, around my teenage years, it became very uncomfortable for me because I did not know how to control it. And it made teenage years very, very difficult. It was not fun. I was the scary girl. I've told, many people this. That's why I've written my books, is to help people understand that. But it's not fun being that freak, which is what I felt like. And so I pushed things down quite a bit until I felt comfortable enough to, again, step out of that broom closet, like I stated to you in my bio, and start to learn a little bit. And I became involved with groups that helped me see how certain people do certain things. And I've kind of amalgamated all of that together, what I learned from others and what I found to give me comfort. And I have actually found a place where I'm finally at ease and at peace with what I do. So I think that covers both realms on that.
Was your family always accepting of your experience? Was there a lifelong family connection to this, or were you kind of the first one that kind of stepped out with it?
I was the first one to step out with it. Was my family comfortable with me doing the things that I did or knowing the things that I did? No, sir. They were not. But for okay reasons. As a young child, it was very difficult for me to understand why they didn't and why it wasn't okay to talk about it. As I get older, and I can look back on those situations, I can understand, because it can be frightening, because even though people in my family have these abilities, I seem to get the mother load, I guess. And it was it is hard for people to deal with. You know, when you know so many things that you shouldn't know, that's really uncomfortable for some people. When you can tell them things that there is absolutely no way you could have any knowledge of, that's, you know, unsettling to a lot of people, even when they're, you know, even when they have certain abilities themselves. So it wasn't that they didn't accept me. They just didn't want me to put myself out there as a freak, I think, if that makes any sense.
You know what? I know exactly where it makes sense, and I'll tell you from a personal standpoint, and I mentioned this just on the air the other day. A few months ago, I had a good friend of mine die, and he had a twin brother, and I don't talk about whatever my intuitiveness is. I try and stay away from it, but he came to me very strong from the other side, more strong than I have ever had in my life from anybody. And it was weird. About a month and a half later, his niece approached me over Facebook and said, I heard that you had talked to my uncle on the other side. Can I ask you what he said? So I filled it in, and I said, look, this is something that I don't do very often. I don't know why it came to me, but this is what happened. I then used my pendulum and went through it. Long story short, his mother then contacted me on Facebook. Her and I never hooked up via conversation. But just 2 weeks ago, or less than that, his twin brother called me up out of the blue. And literally says, and I've known this guy 20 years, and literally says, what are you doing? You're freaking out my family. Why have you done this? You're scaring us, and I'm here to tell you, stay the hell away. And I said to him point blank, and we kind of got into this very polite argument because of the sensitivity of the subject. I said, look, your family came to me. I never came to them. I would never search out someone like that, or to do something like that. So before you try and rip me a new one here, you know, figure it out on your own. Get your own information straight. Did you have a lot of those situations?
Oh, yes. If you don't mind, if I can address what you just talked about.
I'm going to need you to do one thing before me first. We are broadcasting over Skype. I'm going to get you to drop your camera because it is kind of flickering your signal here.
Okay, so just go
right on audio.
Okay, I'm trying to figure out how to do that.
There's a little camera button beside the hang up. Just click on that. There you go.
Okay, great.
Much better.
Okay. If I can address, if it's okay with you, what you were just discussing, it wasn't disbelief in why he contacted you the way that he did, the twin brother. It was not animosity. It was sadness. Sadness in the fact that he was not contacted himself. And so, I mean, it's not that I would ever agree with the way that he wanted to argue with you about it, but I do understand where it was coming from. And
for sure.
I do feel for him. I do feel for him. And so, I mean, I would take that with as little personal affront as possible, even though it wasn't right. Okay?
Yes.
That having been said, for me, my biggest problem, excuse me, is, you know, I read cards, I do tarot, you know, I just know stuff, you know, that's just the way it is. And I guess they call it claircognizant, is, you know, clear knowing. And I don't mind doing it. I don't mind one little bit. But what I do mind, and what has happened to me so many times in the past, is I will have somebody come up and ask me to do a reading for them, and they're very private. I don't publicize my readings. If the person I read for wants to put it out there and let people know, that's great. As far as I know, I don't care if anyone believes that I do them, because it's not for them. It's for the person I read for. And when I have somebody that I read for that comes to me and asks me to do it, and I do it, and it's accurate, and then I get told I'm going to hell for it because there's no possible way that I could know that much. I have a problem with that. And that is one of the reasons why I hid in the shadows for so long, is because it's automatically assumed, because I can do what I can do, that I am some spawn of Satan, that I could only know those things if I was. So there is that problem. The other problem, something a little bit similar to what you're talking about, I don't seek out people either. When I get an image, and I do automatic drawing, so I draw it out. If I don't know who that goes to, but I can't get this person out of my head, I will draw the image, I will write down everything that they've told me, and I will post it on social media and say, I don't know. Any takers? Because I don't know who they're wanting. But this is the person, this is, their first name, this is what they look like, this is how tall they are, how old they are, the day they died, how they died, everything that they're giving me. And I get a lot of private comments back letting me know this is for me, what are they saying, and then I can go along with the message. The other thing is, once people find out you can do this, sleep becomes a thing of the past. And I have actually had to really step back. I did a show on another station, on a YouTube station. And the night that I did that, because it was a show on unsolved mysteries, and so I say what I get. I could be wrong. I encourage anyone and everyone to question every word that comes out of my mouth. If you can find research that proves me wrong, I commend you for it and continue to do so. Does not hurt my feelings one bit, because it's all about the truth. If we can find out the truth. But after I did that show, I got 700 messages in one night for readings. 700, Dave.
That's incredible. That's absolutely incredible.
That's too much. And the messages I got when I couldn't get to people, they were just shy of death threats.
Really?
Yes. True story. Just shy of death threats. Because I couldn't get to somebody. I work all the time. I have a child. He just turned 14 on the 13th. I'm a mom. I'm a waitress and a dental assistant and a jewelry designer and an artist and a radio host and a YouTube host, and I gotta eat, Dave.
No, you're not allowed to do something that simple, are you?
Oh, true story. Hey, why do you think I work at the diner on the weekends? We get free bacon. A plethora.
Oh, hold on. You just added the second favorite word of Space Out Radio there, because you never go wrong with bacon.
Bacon makes everything better, Dave.
Even vegans like bacon.
I know, right? We need bacon-scented candles.
You are making my mouth water. My mouth water right now. Shame on you.
Mine too.
Just for that, I'm going to cheers you with a little sip of Fireball right now. I appreciate that. Mrs. SOR brought me down a little glass, which I appreciate. Plethora, thank you.
A plethora of it.
Mm-hmm. I do have a couple questions coming in for you from our hashtag Spaced Out Radio on Twitter. And this one comes from Mark. He's saying, why do I not bring in my deceased father, but can with a good friend of the family, also deceased?
Okay, that's actually a very good question. Okay, that's actually a very good question. This is my belief. Again, my belief. This is what my experiences have shown me. Is that you can have two types of, if you're talking about, a person that was human, a spirit that was human, you can have two types of deceased. You can have one who is, actually you can have three. You can have one who is still here, who has never crossed over. You can have one who has crossed over and come back, or you can have one who has crossed over and stayed over. So it's not uncommon for people to not be able to contact somebody that they loved, or received communication from somebody that they loved or somebody that they knew. It's not uncommon, because that person might have been at peace when they passed, went ahead and crossed over and decided to stay. Doesn't mean in 2 or 3 years they won't pop in and say, hey, because they can come back. It is a two-way street. That I am a firm believer in that, and I have my reasons for that. That is what they have shown me in my 40 some odd years of dealing with this. That is what they have shown me, is that, they can either be here, then cross over and possibly come back, or they can be here, cross over, and never come back if they so choose. So, that's a good question, but it's a really simple answer. They crossed over. They're perfectly happy right now. Doesn't mean they won't visit in a dream. Doesn't mean they won't come back in 2, 3, 4, 5 years just to check on you. It happens all the time.
Appreciate you taking that time out. And one other question, more so a comment from Joe God of Thunder at #SpacedOutRadio. He's saying maybe a lot of researchers are in it for the personal glory as opposed to knowledge. And we're going to get into this starting right now in regards to the paranormal. What is your opinion of that? Do so many researchers out there much more care to stroke their own egos rather than looking for what the true story is as to why people are having these experiences?
It can happen in many different ways. I do believe, to a certain degree, Joe is absolutely right. I do believe that because of the popularity of the TV shows that are on, from all different aspects, whether it's, UFOs, cryptozoology, paranormal, what have you, even religious, if you're wanting to throw paganism or being Wiccan in there. A lot of people see these shows, see that it's your everyday average Joe, not a famous actor doing it, but your everyday average Joe that caught that big break. And they're like, well, heck, I can do that too. And I understand that. What I don't understand is they don't get that those that are on TV are generally entertainment. They're for entertainment purposes only. Period. Okay? If they stumble upon excellent evidence, fantastic. Got nothing but love for them, Dave. But generally they're for entertainment purposes. So yes, do a lot of people get in this because of that? Absolutely they do. Then you have a whole other group who gets into it because they want to find out, they want to learn more, and they want to educate themselves on what's going on, or they had an experience that they need to reconcile. Totally get that as well. They start putting their evidence out there, they start getting a little cocky, and it ends up becoming a tinkle contest between groups. Instead of sharing evidence and information, it's more like, I've got this, you can't have it, I'm not going to tell you how I got it. So imagine how that would be if scientists who were, coming up with a cure for or a treatment for AIDS or cancer or anything, if they acted the same way. There would be no progress whatsoever. That's what's happening in this field right now. Then you have a small group of people, much smaller than the other two groups, that have had experiences, some their entire lives, some just one that was profound. And they truly want answers. And what they put out there is for people to see and to share and to speculate and to add their own opinion and to watch the videos, like with Beyond Perception Investigators. I've worked with them many, many times. And they will put their videos out there and say, we're not certain what this is. What do you think? And they don't get offended. You're entitled to your opinion. And plenty of people say, nope, that's not paranormal. Then other people say, no, I think that is. And that's the beauty of it when you have certain teams out there that will allow an exchange of ideas, because it broadens our pool of knowledge and what we can dip from. And so many people don't want to do that because they want to be the only one. And that's what's hurting us. And then, Dave, you have a whole other group that I don't know if you've seen a lot of, but I've seen a lot of it out there. And I've written blogs about it, especially on Twitter. you have a lot of groups who are the paranormal, little bunny ear quote, police. And they go on Twitter with masks on. You never know their names. You never know their faces. And they pick apart every group that's out there. But they're too big of wusses to show their faces or say who they are. But they are willing to pick apart everything. So you have people wanting fame from two totally different areas, but for the same reason. Do you see what I'm saying?
I know exactly with what you're saying. Where do you think this attitude, this ego, this hatred came from?
The same place any hatred comes from. Girls can be the cattiest creatures in the world over another pretty girl. Me, I don't care, Dave. I look like I look. I'm a little bit too squishy. If I see a pretty girl, I am the first one to point it out to somebody else. I'm like, damn, she's hot, But, or if I see another group, who's got amazing evidence, I'm like, that is insane. I'm going to give you a good example here. Another group that I'm involved with, MP Paranormal out of Sheffield, England. I actually have been to England and investigated with them. I was involved with one of their members. And they got a really good piece of evidence one time on a live stream that I was participating in because I'm here in Oklahoma. And we have since obviously not been together. Found out some stuff. We're not going to get into that. But that evidence, even though it's got his mug right there in it, I will still share that all day long because it is bar none, without a doubt, one of the best pieces of paranormal evidence I've ever seen in my life. So regardless of my not wanting to associate myself with that one particular person, because I still love that group and still work with them, even though he's in it, I will share that till the day I die because it's phenomenal. And I've never seen nothing like it. You won't find that in a lot of other groups because it's so competitive. It's so catty. And it's so, this has to be about me when it's not. It's about the evidence and it's about who you're trying to communicate with and the message that you're trying to get out there. And that's what's wrong with this entire community.
I can understand that. The problem that a lot of people have now is, what is good evidence? Okay, I don't consider orbs or EVPs good evidence. I think they're overrated. I think that they are read too much in. Yes, it's cool to hear a cool EVP. Okay, it's very, very cool. But I'm wondering, for the most part, what is good evidence, Vanessa?
In my opinion, and I'm very opinionated about this, and I'm not saying this because of what I do, but I will say this. To me, there is no better equipment than an uninformed participant, a notebook, and a pencil. And I'll tell you why. If you are going to do an investigation, at least one person on that team needs to know nothing about the location or any of its history before the team gets there. Period. I simply cannot, for me, accept it done any other way. Because if you have any type of abilities, which we all do to some extent, I'm not special. There is nothing special about me. If anyone is listening to their gut and listening with their heart, they will pick up on similar things that I do. So if you're at a location, you don't know anything about it, and you're getting these images in your head, start writing them down. Start drawing them. Every single word, number, everything. Fill that notebook up, regardless of how ridiculous it sounds, how little sense it makes. Put it down. After the investigation, have it all verified. And you would be amazed at the accuracy. Absolutely amazed at the accuracy. I was invited to do an investigation in El Dorado, Oklahoma, and that's all I knew. Actually, I knew El Dorado. I didn't even know if it was Oklahoma, Texas, Kansas. Didn't know because they were going to come pick me up and drive me out there. Well, that was about 2 weeks before the investigation, so I had my notebook. So I started drawing out everything I saw. Are these little 3D crosses that look like barrettes on the back of a girl's head. Weird little chihuahuas in a dressing room in Target. No joke, Dave. It's okay. Y'all chuckle amongst yourselves. I don't mind. And, it's a church and 2 separate houses that look like they were built 75 years apart, and cats everywhere, and then a bunch of different other things. I didn't know what it meant. Didn't have an idea about what any of it meant, but I put it in a notebook. We pull into El Dorado, Oklahoma, and turn onto the street that this house is on, and cats are lining the street. Lining the street. There's probably 50 to 60 cats lining the street, and they're all staring at this one house. It's not the house I drew. The 2 houses I drew, one was on one side of the street facing the house we were going to go into, and the other one was catty-cornered to it facing the house we were going to go into. Now, the 3 cross barrettes, when you walked around to the back of the house, the shingles had separated on the roof and made 3 crosses, one on top of the other. And as far as the chihuahuas, the owners of the house had 3 of them. This was a show for Animal Planet that I did. So, I mean, none of that I knew. There's no, and by the way, the house used to be a church. So that makes sense to me, because they asked me what I thought of it. And I said, well, because I didn't want to go in. Yeah, I had the worst vibe on this place, and it turned out to be accurate. But I said, I don't want to go in there. And they said, well, you have to. And they said, why? What do you get? And I said, well, this has, fire and brimstone in the front, orgy in the back, dirty preacher written all over it. And that's pretty much what it was, what this house used to be on this land. So that's why I believe that your own mind and heart, soul, gut feeling, everything, a notebook and a pencil is the best equipment you can take. And somebody who has no knowledge of the area. So now I've gotten some crazy orb pics, Dave. I can't lie to you. I got some in England and Scotland that make absolutely no sense. Heard some insane EVPs. But I only trust EVPs when I hear them from people that I know weed out the crap. Just being honest.
No, and I can understand that. And I can appreciate that all too well. But the point that I'm trying to make here, and maybe I'm not getting it across the airwaves as well as I should, what is then the goal of the paranormal? What are we trying to solve here, Vanessa? Because we have so many people out there who have different agendas, different highlight reels, from those who want to play Pokemon Ghost, to those who want to debunk everything, to those who want to try and figure out whether or not there is life after death, and everything in between. And it just seems like we have no specifics for what we are trying to solve. We're hoarding evidence for no reason, whatever that evidence may be. So you get an EVP that says, hello, or get out. Because 98% of them say, get out. Even though it says, see you next Tuesday, or something along those lines. Right? So the whole point that I'm trying to get at here is the evidence is useless if we don't have a common goal of what we are trying to solve.
You just put that perfectly. And so now I can address it. Okay. I'm just going to be very blunt. As far as my own personal opinion, I don't need proof that the paranormal exists or that there's life after death, because I don't have any choice but to believe in it. I already know it exists out there. Therefore, I have no reason to prove myself to anybody. My only goal is to communicate with those who try to communicate with me and pass their message along. Therein lies the problem. So many people feel like they have to prove instead of communicate. You don't have to prove anything. I don't demand that somebody prove something to me. If you get evidence and you feel it's important and it's a message for someone, deliver it, for heaven's sake. That's our job. Right there. That's our job. My friend Gwen Clapper with BPI put it best: to give the dead a voice and a living closure. That's what it's about. It isn't about getting our ugly mugs on TV. It's not about, how many followers we have on Twitter or Facebook. Who cares? Get the message, deliver it if possible, give some peace to the deceased. That's what it should be about. Unfortunately, for most, it's not.
And that's the problem. If people had a direct connection to what they are trying to solve, this would be an entirely different field, because you could admit, being in the field as long as you have, Vanessa, there are some extremely talented people in this field doing some extremely good work, except nobody is bringing all that extreme talent together to try and figure out something that even the greatest scientists in this lifetime, in the history of Earth, have never been able to solve. And we have that ability sitting in our palm of our hands, and we do nothing with it. It's like literally holding the key to the Powerball's winning numbers, and you're about to become a 100 millionaire or more. And you just look at that key and say, do I really need this? No, I'll just put it in my pocket and go get another day. Meanwhile, you're begging on the street for food. It doesn't make sense to me.
It's because they've taken the humanity out of it. Like I said before, they consider it about them. Look at all the look at all the evidence I've gotten, instead of, I need to pass this message along. Or, I need to speak with this spirit and bring them some semblance of peace. That's what it should be. It isn't, like I said, it's not about me. It isn't about you. It isn't about the groups out there. It is about bringing peace and passing along messages. That's all it should be about. And I get so frustrated. I have thought about getting out of this field for good a lot. A lot. I truly have. And it's a daily struggle because of some of the stuff I see out there. It is a daily struggle. But I know what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm not going to stop doing that because other people frustrate me. I simply can't, because then I'm not using the gift that I was given in the proper way that it was given to me. That's just how I feel about it.
What kept you in? What kept you going?
What kept me going is knowing some of the people that I do, and that they're in it for the right reasons. I have a support system that is unbelievable. One that I could not have imagined having, 10, 15, 20 years ago or more. Between, I can't go into the whole list of people, because it's a long one. But, between, Mike Ricksecker, whom I love to death, Chris Loper, Gwen Clapper, Kim Neiman, Lorna Crone, Dave Newton, Carl Porter, Abby Thompson, Laura Keats, everybody who is a part of my daily life and my struggle in dealing with this, and me helping them with their struggles in dealing with this. It's having that support system and knowing that we've got each other's back, and that we're all in it to try to help as many people, dead or alive, as possible, is why I stay.
Do you hold the people accountable? Do you hold television accountable? Do you hold the idea of social media accountable to the social demise of the paranormal field? No. I hold the individuals accountable, and I'm very strict about this, because I would want to be held accountable if I was doing the same thing. Call me out on it. Say, Vanessa, you're getting too big for your britches. You need to simmer down. And I would agree if I was doing that. I liken it to what I do in the dental field, if you'll humor me for a moment. I see a lot of people who come in and they ain't brushed their teeth in 6 months. No joke. And people are like, well, maybe it wasn't big in their household. Maybe they weren't taught right. And I'm sitting there thinking, they know how to dress. They know which shoes are popular. They know which jeans are popular because they watch commercials. Well, I've seen Crest commercials too.
So, I mean, there's personal accountability. You have to be responsible. It's like saying every kid that plays Call of Duty is going to go out killing people. No, they're not. It's called personal accountability and being responsible for your own actions. I don't believe that people who are in this field for the wrong reasons are unaware of it. I think they know. And I think they choose to do that anyway. So I can't blame social media or TV or anybody else for that. I can blame the individual, and I do.
Yes, you can blame the individual, but what if they don't know any better? What do you think their goal or their purpose is if they really don't have a sense in even wanting to solve anything concrete?
You know what? It hurts my soul to think that somebody don't know better. It just does. Because, I mean, even the youngest of children at the age of 6 knows they're lying, And I'm not by any means calling anybody liars out there, but I'm saying it's a conscience. Unless you're a sociopath and you have absolutely no conscience, you know why you're in something. You know why you're doing it. So maybe I'm a hard ass. I can't let people out, on a hall pass on that. I just can't do it any more than I would want somebody to let me out on it. Trust me. Not necessarily in the paranormal field, but in others, if I have crossed my line, I have been called back. And not only do I expect it, I appreciate it. Because I need to stay focused, but it doesn't mean I didn't know I was doing it, I mean, I've gotten a little mouthy a time or two with some people, and I've had to be reined back in by those who love me. I knew exactly what I was doing. Might not have been the smartest thing for me to do, but I knew, and I accept that responsibility for it. So I can't give a hall pass on that. I can't say that people don't know what their own motives are. Do you know what I mean?
I fully know what you mean in regards to that. And everybody has their own opinion. Everybody has their own feeling as to why they get into this. Whether it's stars in their eyes that they are the next television show that's going to explode, or whether they are someone who's trying to figure out the answers to life because maybe they've had a tragedy that they just need to deal with it this way. There are differing opinions, but that still doesn't allow the fact for anybody to be crapping all over anybody, as we see so much in this field, more so than I believe many other fields. Like, we don't really see it on the field of ufology side. The cryptid side really doesn't have this type of hatred and loathing. Why is it only the paranormal side?
I think because the paranormal side has a little bit more glory attached to it. There are quite a few teams out there that are on TV, or that have been on TV, that, they want to be like, where if you're talking about cryptozoology or UFOs or anything like that, that lends itself more to a studious type person, more to a, I don't want to put this way and hurt people's feelings, because I don't mean that, because I'm highly educated, but there seems to be a little bit more of an educated opinion in those fields, whereas this is more, did you feel that? You know what I mean? The other thing is that, in the paranormal field, we have one big thing that really, really, really pushes the envelope, and that is the religious aspect. So you have so many people out there chasing demons, so to speak. Pardon the laughter. They're chasing those. They're wanting so badly to have that experience so that they can reconcile their own personal religious beliefs or feelings or so on and so forth, and almost say that, they touched death, or that they touched something innately or inherently evil and survived. I think that is probably one of the more driving factors. And it might even be on more of a subconscious level. But it's more thrill-seeking, I believe, in the paranormal fields than it is in others. And I think that's why. I really do. I think it's a thrill-seeking thing.
And I can understand that. But do you think the people who are having this attitude or this personal desire to make themselves stars via the paranormal, do you think that their attitude, the ego of this field, comes into play because those people really haven't had an experience that has changed their life?
Well, that's a touchy question, okay? And I'll tell you why. I think that many of them have had experiences. I really do. I'm not going to take that away from any one person out there. I think that experiences have touched more of us than even a lot of us are willing to admit, and maybe on even deeper levels than we're willing to acknowledge. So I won't take that away from anybody. What I will say is that I think that people don't deal with those experiences in the same way. They don't try to figure them out. They do look at them as a cash cow, and maybe some of them hold a little bit of anger about it. Maybe that's one of the reasons why they go at it full force. But when it comes right down to it, if I'm being completely honest, it's ego. It's ego, money, want my mug on TV. That really, I hate to say it, but it really is that simple.
I don't think it is. And I'm going to disagree with you on this one, only because I can.
Okay.
Okay, because I don't think that if most of these people who are acting like complete idiots out there, I really don't believe for a second that they have had an experience that is so life-altering. And I'm not just saying seeing a ghost of grandma, okay? I'm not saying, seeing a shadow person or something along those lines. But I don't believe the majority of them have had any sort of interaction that has absolutely, completely changed their lives so much that they are now needing to pursue this because their life is incomplete without that answer. I really don't believe that, Vanessa.
And you very well could possibly be right, and as far as the ego thing, I mean, I think I'm dead on balls accurate on that. But I do want to give people the benefit of the doubt and believe that, somewhere deep inside it is a need for knowledge, based on something like an experience. Does it stay that way? No. It's a need for fame and glory and, hey, this many people are following me, or look at how many likes I got, or blah, 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 But, I mean, you very well may be right. I know you're right in one aspect. And that is with what we were just talking about, like with the demons. I can't, for the life of me, understand how so many people can say that they have experienced something like that and then go out and seek it again. Only because, in all honesty, it took me 44 years to actually experience that. And Dave, I got to be honest with you, if it never happens to me again, I will be the happiest person in the world. That was the worst experience of my life. One I don't ever care to repeat. And me and Gwen and Chris damn near quit that night. We were pretty much done. And by the time I got back to Oklahoma from Virginia, it took 3 weeks to recover. It was awful. So anyone who has actually been through something like that, how they would seek it out a second time, that right there tells me for a fact it didn't happen the first time.
I can understand that. And, getting into the whole aspect of demonology and demonologists and certified demonologists, which, I don't know, that just makes me laugh.
I know, right?
It opens up a plethora of Pandora's boxes here of either a lot of lies, a lot of stupidity, or a lot of naivety. And we could do an hour on that very, very easily tonight because it is literally that difficult. So we got about 60 seconds before we got to hop out for our first break, Vanessa.
Okay.
Let me ask you this, how much do you think the word demon has affected the paranormal?
I would say about 90% of the teams out there are probably affected by it. and want so desperately to get evidence of that. And that I cannot understand. Like I said, my personal experience, if it never happens again, I will have won the lottery.
I get that. Quick question from Mario. We got about 30 seconds. Can you quickly explain the event that scared you for 3 weeks?
It'll take longer than 30 seconds.
Well, let's save it until after the break then, because I have a couple questions from our audience that I've been holding off to as well, and we'll get to those.
Okay, that sounds like a great idea.
Well, why rush things? We got 2 hours to go with you, V, and who knows? Who knows? Maybe we can even convince you for some overtime tonight. Who knows?
Honey, I'm all yours.
Woo! That's the first time I've heard that in a long time. Wow. Hopefully Mrs. SOR ain't listening to that one. Oh, I'm blaming Vanessa Hogle for turning this bright, sunshiny ship into a dark cloud of whatever it is. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I'm your host, Dave Scott. We will be back with more Vanessa Hogle right after this.
Looking for news beyond the mainstream news? Head to spacedoutradio.com and check out the SOR Spacewire. This is Spaced Out Radio's Eric Markham, News Director for the SOR Spacewire. Daily, I will bring you intriguing stories and outlandish reports from what's going on around the world. UFO sightings, paranormal activity, conspiracies, alternative health, and so much more. And if you have news, email me at news@spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there. I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com.
Have you had an experience you can't explain? Had a run-in with ghosts, maybe Bigfoot, or seen lights in the sky? Hi, I'm Mike Schmidt from the SOR Sightlines. I'm here to investigate your sighting. Head to spacedoutradio.com and fill out a report on the Sightlines. All your information is 100% confidential, and I will help you figure out what you've been seeing. File your report, and let's find out the answers together.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
From British Columbia to Northern California, Pacific North Weird has Cascadia covered. Check out our feature videos at spacedoutradio.com, where I, Vincent Zunza, and my super sleuth partner Alexandra Sullivan track down the weird and strange stories from around the Pacific Northwest. From Bigfoot to Mel's Hole and everything in between. This is what makes life exciting. So why report the normal when we can report the Pacific North Weird right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Oh, there's only one way to rock. Loud and proud. In high definition. Radio 702 rocks. Las Vegas.
Have you ever had an extraterrestrial experience? One you just couldn't explain? Well, maybe I can help. Hello, I am Samantha Mullet. On the second Tuesday of each month, I will join Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio to bring a human aspect to ET contact. It's something I've lived with my entire life, and I'd love to help you understand. Let's share our experiences. The ET Experience, the second Tuesday of each month, only on Spaced Out Radio.
Hi there, this is Jolene with Reveal Reiki and Readings, and I want you to relax. Let me help you chill out and get in touch with your body, mind, and soul. In this busy world, sometimes we need to let go, and this is where I can help. Visit my website, rivuletrr.wix.com/rivuletrr&r.
Every Saturday and Sunday night, as Dave Scott wanders aimlessly in the wilderness. You can come hang out with me, James Tyson, in Spaced Out Weekend. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I'll take you along as we talk with some of the best experts in their fields. SpacedOutRadio.com is the place to find us. So sit down, relax, put your feet up. Enjoy the topics like the paranormal, supernatural, intuitiveness, and so much more. Hope to see you there.
Hi there, this is your psychic medium, Joanna, and I would love it if you would join us every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. With host James Tyson, we'll bring you personal psychic messages on two mediums and a large. Questions about love, life, career changes. We would love it if you would come and join us live. Call in and listen in for the experience. Allow us to open the doors to your other side. Two mediums and a large, heard only on Spaced Out Weekend at spacedoutradio.com.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
Do you have a topic or a guest that you'd like to hear on Spaced Out Radio? Let us know at spacedoutradio.com, where you can sign up to become a Space Traveler member today. Or you can find us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on our Facebook page, Spaced Out Radio Show. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you along for the ride. I do want to remind you that tomorrow night and Christmas Day, there will be no Spaced Out Weekend at all. Uncle Jimbo, James Tyson, and Elizabeth Anglin taking the weekend off to spend it with their family and friends over the holiday season. So we will be back live on Monday night with Butch Witkowski. And before we do our introductions and reintroductions to the show, I do want to remind you that if you're a big fan of Christmas, because old Davey is, make sure you use noradsanta.org, because Santa Claus takes off from the North Pole in exactly 57 minutes from now. I'm excited about that. I still call my kids up and get my kids together and say, hey, make sure you check out the website, find out where Santa Claus is. Australia, I know you are first on the list or close to it, and I know we got our Aussie listeners in the chat rooms on Spreaker right now. Make sure your kids are excited. Get them to noradsanta.org, because the big red guy is coming to your house soon. Want to thank everyone listening in on the United Public Radio Network, live on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. Good to have you along for the ride. Revolution Radio is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. We're proud to be broadcasting on Studio B there. Remember, the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Do us a favor, visit freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password in the SOR Space Travelers Club for tonight. Dermatoheteroplasty. Dermatoheteroplasty is your password. I think I nailed it. That's worth a Katie. Dermatoheteroplasty is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers. It is important indeed that you do so. If you want to follow me on social media, you can do so on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I could be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can tune us in on TuneIn, download this show and others on iTunes, and our website is spacedoutradio.com. While there, we have a plethora of features for you to check out, from our music man Bubblefoot to joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. I highly suggest you check us out today. Vanessa Hogle is our guest tonight on the mighty SOR. We're talking all things paranormal. Vanessa, welcome back.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
Right before the break, we were asked by Mario in the Space Out Radio chat room on Spreaker if you could explain in detail your event that scared you for 3 weeks.
Well, it actually involved Beyond Perception Investigators, which is the group that I work with. It's in Virginia. We had a bunch of different things happen before I flew out there. And once I got there, boy, we hit the ground running. And one of the investigations was at a private residence. And we had an experience out there that we ended up coming into the presence of, I guess what some would call a creeper, something along those lines. And it was absolutely terrifying. We were in a barn that was not a barn. It was a people barn. Wasn't anything you would have ever kept animals in. The stalls were 2 feet deep. You had to step down 2 feet into them. There were no openings on the doors. There was no way to open the door from the inside. They went from floor to ceiling completely. And this thing was stomping around on the roof of this barn, this people barn, and it was doing it to commands, and it was loud. And it was, what happened to one of my friends while we were there was unbelievably frightening. We actually got to feel what this made the people that were held in that barn feel. And it was horrible. And it's not anything that I ever care to experience again.
I'm lucky I haven't had anything that scary.
I yes, you are.
You know, I mean, I've been face to face with an alien, and I think I could handle it again, to have that happen. But to absolutely get terrorized by a spirit or ghost or whatever you want to call it, where you don't even know where it is, that is just unbearable on the nerves.
This was never human. This was never human. What we came into contact with was never human. And the absolute terror that was on that property. I came back bruised and swollen and just, I mean, like somebody just beat the tar out of me. It had me at one point in time running for everything that was there, because there were multiple things there. There was just too much. There was too much there. At one point in time, my head was laying on my back. I didn't even know that was possible. There's about 8 witnesses to it, but my head was actually laying on the top of my back. I was standing in the front yard with my head, basically, I guess, looking behind me. And at one point in time, Chris, who he's a war veteran, you know, he's a war veteran. He spent a lot of time in Iraq. I mean, he's seen some stuff that I don't even need to go into detail on. Got bad knees because of all that and everything, and he had to tackle me in the driveway because I was being led away at bullet speed. Now, I don't know if y'all don't know this about me or not, but I ain't the most athletic thing out there. I'm a little short, squishy thing. You know, I mean, I'm only 5'2". I don't exactly have the longest of legs, but I was Jackie Joyner Kersey that night, and he had to tackle me in the driveway.
Was that with or without the steroids?
Well, I don't know, but let's just say that at 44, I'm not a track star. Okay, And but apparently I was that night. And it wasn't just there. It wasn't just there. I guess, and there's footage of quite a bit of this in Hollywood Cemetery in Virginia. They had me, and I say they because it was so many of them, different types though, nowhere near as dangerous as what we dealt with on that other property. Different types, actual humans that were deceased. I guess I'm kind of like a taxi, I mean, when they know they can hop on in and drive, they do. And I guess I just go somewhere else. And I guess at one point in time, they had me going so fast that I kicked off my shoes in the cemetery and was gone. And, I got, 7 or 8 people, I guess, trying to keep up with me, and nobody could. And it was very, very, very bizarre. It's a strange thing, really. I guess one of the reasons, going back to something you and I talked about earlier about, whether or not my family accepted it and such, when you don't see something like this very often, the things that happen to me when I get taken over, when you don't see that very often and you finally do get to see it, it's frightening. And too many people have seen that out of me. It's happened a few times in New Orleans, scared the crap out of the people I was with then. I ran 18 blocks, had no idea. I started at one location, I ended up over a mile away. Had no idea how I got there.
That's insane. Just
a little bit. A little bit. And apparently really frightening for those who are viewing it.
Question from Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio from Joe God of Thunder. He is saying, how do you identify a deceptive entity that you may come across? How do you protect yourself from them?
Oh, Joe God of Thunder, bless you. Here's the thing. I used to be really cocky. I used to think that, you know what, I was given this gift and I'm just going to take it and run with it. Let them do what they will. And I did. That's exactly what I let them do. Okay? Until Virginia. And going to Virginia and experiencing what I experienced there, and the different investigations that we had, and the unbelievable amount of, I hate to call it evidence, but evidence that we got there, I learned that I am not infallible, that I am in fact very fragile, and that I definitely need to ask for help. And I definitely need to protect myself. And I learned that a very hard way, and it was a tough lesson to learn. I am much more careful now. I still let things speak to me. I try not to block things out too much, but I listen with a much clearer ear, and I listen for the little things, the little telltale signs that let me know whether this was human. How does it speak? How is it interacting with me? What do I smell when it's around? What do I taste when it's around? A dead giveaway to something negative is it tastes like charcoal. The air tastes like charcoal when you come near it, and like you just went out and said, "Hey, that briquette looks good. I'm gonna chew on that for a minute." That's what it tastes like. When you get into the same space as something that may not have been human, it is a much more rancid smell and taste. And it's like decaying flesh and the worst garbage and sewer all tied into one. It's the worst smell you can think of, and I pay a lot closer attention to those things now. I learned the hard way.
I can understand that. We got another question coming in from the SOR Space Travelers Club from Vivian. She is asking, do you think the older program, or what do you think of the older television program, The Ghost Whisperer?
Oh, I answered her on Facebook, but I'm going to do it here for everybody else to hear. I actually love that show. I love that show. Now, granted, it is for entertainment purposes. Okay, and it does show things a lot more clear then you might see them if you're me or somebody else with these abilities, because obviously, they don't necessarily show up in full corporal form like that, like they see on that show. But that show actually is what helped me step out of the broom closet for the last time. It really is. It made me see how important it is that regardless of the risk to yourself, regardless of how painful it can be at times, that helping others is what it's about. And that's the message of that show that I absolutely love, is it's about helping people, regardless of whether or not they think you are just, 2 fries short of a Happy Meal. It really is. It's about getting out there and doing exactly what you were meant to do. And so I love it. And I'm glad that I watched the whole season. I mean, all of them on Netflix. I watched the whole darn thing in like 2 weeks. Because I never watched it when it was on TV. And that's what actually inspired me to go ahead and come public.
Let's stick with TV for a minute, because we've tackled the paranormal side, but television has such a great influence on what is supposed to be happening in the paranormal field, what people go through. And a lot of people who view those shows don't understand that's probably anywhere between 8 and 40 hours of filming for a 47-minute episode. Is there any quality paranormal television out there, or do you think that it's all blown out of proportion?
That's the thing. I don't have regular TV. I have Netflix and Hulu, and I work a lot. So most of it's just in the background. I have heard very good things about, there's a show out there, and it's a lady that does what I do with the automatic drawing, and she, I believe, works with a guy who is an ex-police officer or FBI agent or something like that. And she goes to the location first and draws out what she sees and everything, and then he does his investigation. And then they meet up afterwards with the clients. And I can appreciate that. I think that is a stellar way to do it, and I've heard very good things about that. Now, I was just in Guthrie, Oklahoma. My dear friend Mike Ricksecker, who is also my publisher, he's with Haunted Road Media. He was invited to do an interview with Ghost Adventures. And, I believe, they might lean more towards the entertainment venue. But I have to say I was deeply impressed by what I saw there. We were on set for 6 hours. And the way that the team worked, and it was almost militant in their in how they did things. It was very put together and very businesslike, and the way that they treated the people that they were doing the interviews with was commendable. They really put them at ease, and I really enjoyed that experience. I liked that. But for the most part, most of the shows out there are strictly for entertainment purposes only, even if they don't say that. And this is why. And it's a very simple reason. Like you said, Dave, and like I know from my experience in Virginia, when you're watching one of those shows, like Gwen does her episodes, they're about 45 minutes, okay? Because that's about really what you can upload to YouTube. But she will go through 10, 15, 16, 17, 18, 20, 25 hours of video for one 45-minute episode. And she's not picking out only the good stuff. She'll have some dead air time in there too, where we didn't get anything, because people need to see that. But a lot of the shows pack all the good stuff that might take 4 or 5 days to get into that 45-minute segment. And what the viewing public fails to realize is that, they're watching that and they're thinking that has all happened just boom, 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 when in fact it hasn't. It's happened over a long period of time. They just wear the same clothing. That's an actual trick. I actually know that because I did a show. So, I actually know that. And we were in the same clothes for 2.5 days. But what people don't realize is if the viewing public, if even 10% of the viewing public went through 10% of what someone who has these experiences goes through, they would be scared out of their minds. because it is weird. It's weird to be taking a shower and having the doors on your bathroom jiggle, like somebody's trying to get in because you've locked the door. I was in the shower the other night and a guy walked straight past me. I was in the house by myself, but I'd just done a reading, so he stopped by. It's just one of those things. I did a reading for his family. He's deceased. All of a sudden, the connection is made, so he's walking through my bathroom, and you could see you could see his full outline of his body walk past my shower curtain. And if people had to deal with that, they wouldn't be able to handle it. But watching it on TV, they've got to spice it up. They've got to add the juice to it. They've got to make it as, heart racing as possible in order to keep people's attention. But what those people watching it need to realize, it's not fun. It's not. No part about it is something, that you would want to do 24/7, because you'd go nuts.
No, I fully agree you would go nuts. And I think a lot of people, though, because there is a real lack of education in this field, that they use those shows as their tutorial on how to conduct an investigation on the paranormal. Do you feel that this is a huge, huge issue for those coming into the field?
Oh, I 100% agree that it is a huge, huge issue. And I will tell you my biggest pet peeve, aside from the whole demon thing, my biggest pet peeve is when people walk into a place and they're like, come on, hit me. Or they're calling them out, or they're trying to antagonize or instigate a situation simply to get evidence. What bothers me so much about that is they could be talking to a small child who drowned. They could be talking to a grandmother who died of a heart attack on a kitchen floor. They could be talking to somebody who passed away, who did not have all their faculties in place. Maybe they had mild retardation. Maybe they had autism. Maybe they had Asperger's. Maybe they were mute. Maybe they were deaf. It could be anything. But above all else, the no maybe about it is it was a person. Treat it like you would want to be treated. If somebody's trying to contact you when you pass away, show a little respect. And that is the one thing that it really upsets me that I see on a lot of these shows is, and I think, honestly, if the viewing public would open their minds a little bit to it, maybe the shows could back off a little bit. I think it's a mutual responsibility. The public has to say, we want it to be real. Even if it's boring for a minute, show us real. If they would just do that. If they would just do that one thing and say, we really want to learn. We want to grow. We want to communicate. If they would do that, then maybe the networks could back off a little bit from trying to make it seem so hostile.
And that's the big issue, is the networks need that rating. They got to make their money in order to keep themselves afloat and their programming going. Without the ratings from the people, they're dead in the water. So they have to make things interesting. But on the flip side, at what point do these so-called paranormal investigators, who are now television stars, come out and say, guys, this isn't the way it is. This is television land. And there's a big difference between television land and what goes on a real investigation. At what point should that happen?
Well, it should have already happened, but it hasn't. I can take that back. I was on Animal Planet's The Haunted. Matter of fact, most of the camera work you see on there, because the lady that was the head of the group, she cut my face out of the filming. She didn't send it to the network. It was my reading on the show, though, by the way. Anyone who took credit for that was mine. But it was the Leave Now or Die episode. And I've come out and said completely that, it isn't boom, boom, boom. It doesn't happen that way. Many of the teams that I know, NP Paranormal, all of their episodes are live. They're live. Every last one of them that they have done has been live. So they might go out and spend 2 hours at a location and not get a darn thing. And you know what? They've kept all their viewers. Every last one of them. They're the second most watched live stream on live stream for paranormal. And they will have plenty of episodes where they don't get anything. But it's because they do it right. They keep it real. That's their hashtag. And I could not be prouder of them. I love them. That's the main ones, Dave Newton, Carl Porter, and Abby Thompson. Be lost without them. But they keep it honest. And so you do have those groups out there that are willing to do that. That are willing to say, you're not always going to get something. But boy, when you do. And that's what I'm really wanting people to start asking for. Is I would rather, as a television viewer sometimes, because like I said, I don't have cable, but I would rather sit down for an hour a week and see nothing for 6 weeks straight, except for people trying to get evidence and not getting it. And then on that 7th week, they get something. And I'm like, you know what? I believe you. Because that was real. Because I know that you have kept it honest all these other episodes. And if that's what we all start asking for, I think that there is a possibility of seeing a change in how things are done. But we as a public got to start asking for it. We're not going to get it otherwise.
Do you think that the paranormal or those in it are afraid to ask for that help, though? Because it all comes down to perception of what makes a good investigation. For instance, we have a lot of teams out there that will do residentials or places of work. And they will go in there, confirm that it is haunted, leave, not give any answers whatsoever. And then the next thing you know, the spirit who is ever inside that home or place of work is literally on a rampage now because it's upset that it's been tortured, brutalized, whatever adjective you want to call it. And I don't think there is any modicum of respect for the spirit that is involved by a lot of these groups, especially when it comes to residential and places of work.
Oh, you're absolutely right. You are 100% right. Sometimes you can go into a location and your mere presence there, somebody like myself or others like me, go in and they can communicate and it might open things up a little bit and activity might increase a little bit. But how they're treated and how the people that live there and the people that are deceased, how they're treated dictates a lot what will happen after the team leaves. In the particular situation that we had in Virginia on that property, that was a private residence where that horrific situation happened. And we didn't go, matter of fact, the night we left from there when that happened, we left half the equipment. We did, with specific instructions to the family, you are not to go to this area of the property because it wasn't going to come to the house. That thing wasn't coming to the house. It knew exactly what it was doing and who it was holding right there. And it was happy with it. But Gwen and I went back the next day and we cleansed the house, the both of us. We sat down with the family. We discussed what they can do, what they can't do, the things that they need to avoid, the area of the property they need to avoid. We sat down with the children of the family and were very explicit with these instructions. So, those loose ends were tied up. You're absolutely correct in saying that not everybody does that. And that's frustrating, especially when they go in and they antagonize or try to cause a ruckus just to get evidence. And then, okay, we got this. We're good now. We're gonna bail, and then they zoom out of there. Yeah, you're damn right. You're going to be left with some pretty scary situations for a family or a business to deal with. And that bothers me greatly. What bothers me even worse is then you have this whole other slew of people that come in that are like, okay, well, you know what? I can cleanse this. I can make this go away. for $19.95, or put however many, dollar signs you want on there, then you have that group of people. So what we need to do as an entire community is just one of these days, for heaven's sake, please get together and say, we've got to do this the right way. If we open something, we close it. If we start something, we finish it. If we, get into a conversation, we bring it to its conclusion. These are the things that have to happen. No speeding out of a location in the middle of the night. No antagonizing and not coming back. No saying, well, sorry, and leaving it at that. That has to stop. And Dave, I wished I knew how to make people do that.
I get that, but here's my problem with these television shows, and I don't mean it to be a gripe fest, okay? But one of my issues with these television shows is they never offer solutions. The closest one that used to offer solutions was Paranormal State, until we all learned that Ryan Buell's show was literally faked for the next few seasons after season 1 and 2. Why do you think a lot of these television shows are shying away from offering any solution to help the spirit or the people involved?
Well, there's a little bit of a can of worms that you can open up with that, okay? If there isn't actual evidence, and by evidence I mean if there isn't real stuff caught, real communication made, real situations to handle, there's no need to offer anything afterwards. And I think that's what you run into a lot. On the rare occasions that some of these shows actually do get evidence and do open up a line of communication, I don't think they know how to deal with it. And unfortunately, they don't seek out the right people or the right avenues to figure out how to deal with it. I always love it when when I see, or back in the past when I've seen one of those shows where they walk into somebody's house that's having paranormal activity, and they might see that the woman is wearing a pentacle, or they, might see that she has a jewelry box that has a pentagram on the top of it. Oh, it must be witchcraft. Oh, she must be evil. So, I don't know how we're going to do this. Don't even get me started. I am pagan, I am Wiccan, and I do not summon demons. I do not bring forth any of the negative energies. I use it all to help people. So every single time you walk into a place, that does not mean that's what it is. Then they try to belittle things that people have tried to do in order to cleanse their own home. So I think a lot of it has to do with not only the people that are having these experiences, they need to be educated. The people that are on the shows need to be educated. The public needs to be educated on different things that you can do. Because there are things. There are things that you can do to cleanse negative energy from your house. Doesn't mean it'll work forever, but it can give you a semblance of peace. There are things that you can do. This spirit communication and entities and ghosts and spirits and everything else, this has been around since the day after the first person ever died. I mean, this is not new. Civilizations have been dealing with this since the beginning of time. And now that we have it being shown on TV, people have thrown good sense, history, and knowledge straight out the window.
How do you clean it up? Is there a possibility, or the networks have their claws in this way too deep?
Well, you can clean certain things up. Some things you might not get rid of permanently, but there are different herbs you can use. There are different healing sessions that you can do. There's different meditations that you can do to cleanse your area. There's you can use Florida water, which is a particular type of mixture that you put together to spray around your property. There's Native American traditions that you can use if you're in a situation that involves Indian land. There's all different things that you can do, herbal remedies. And it sounds like I'm some hippie chick, which I am. Hi, y'all. But it sounds so simple, yet it works so well because it's what has worked since forever. It's what we've always done. And now people seem to not want to do that. Or they just don't, hey, let's go ahead and address another way. They just don't want it to go away. Think about that. There are a lot of people that claim to have paranormal activity that they want it gone so bad. They bring somebody in there to deal with it and to document it and to do all this other stuff. And then they won't let it go. They won't let it go. They talk about it constantly. They try to capture more evidence. Even after they've left the location. So if you don't let something go and you don't cleanse it from your being and make boundaries, it isn't going to leave you alone. And that's just the truth.
How much evidence do you need? And I guess that's the big question it comes down to with everything in the paranormal. Whether we see it on television, whether we're doing our own investigations. How much evidence do you need? We hear all of these groups compiling evidence, putting it in their reservoirs for a future date that may never come. How much do you need in order to prove the existence of spiritual activity?
Well, you don't. I mean, it really is that simple. I think his name is David Wolf. He put it best. He's a speaker. And he put it absolutely best when he says, we don't have to prove the existence of ghosts because it was proven after the first one. And I agree with that. The first time a spirit communicated with me, I knew. There was no additional proof needed. None. If you've had an experience, you know. And they've done polls all across the U.S., and I'm sure they've done them overseas as well, but 70% of Americans believe in paranormal experiences. 70% of Americans claim to have had paranormal experiences, have spoken to a deceased loved one, have seen a deceased loved one. That is a large number of people. So we don't need to prove anything. And I think that's probably, I think you just hit the nail on the head. That's the biggest hang up. I don't have to prove nothing to nobody. You believe me? Great.
I get that. And I apologize for cutting you off.
No,
but we have all these groups who say, we're compiling evidence. We are sitting there getting these EVPs, getting the video footage, getting the photographs, the orbs, everything. We're collecting all this evidence. And then you ask them, what are you doing with it? And it's amazing how many of these paranormal groups cannot answer that simple question.
Oh, I'll answer it. Because most people don't have that much evidence. It sounds so much better to say that you do. And you're going to release it. You know you are. You just want to make sure it's perfect, right? You want to get everything together. But you probably don't have squat. That's why I'm like, I would so much rather, if you've got something, if you have video, EVP, you've got anything, I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's somebody, if it's a ghost going, dude, I don't care. Put it out there. Put it out there. Just let it be, help the people and let it be. But don't try to, I think a lot of it is people try to make themselves sound more important than they actually feel. And the thing is, if they would just do what they're supposed to, they would feel it all they needed to. They would feel that importance. They would feel that sense of purpose. But no, it's all about perception. I was actually told by somebody this week, stupidest statement I've ever heard in my life. Perception is reality. No, it isn't. Perception is assumption. So, but in the paranormal field, perception is reality. People worry so much about how they're perceived that they don't care about doing what they're actually supposed to do. And I don't care how I'm perceived, like me or not. It doesn't matter 2 cents to me. I don't care. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Well, let's get into another serious topic of this, because we just touched on it a couple of minutes ago about how a lot of these paranormal teams do not know how to offer help either to the spirit or ghosts involved or the client. What do you do, Vanessa, and I'll put you on the spot here, in order to either help cleanse a home, get in touch with the spirit to let them know what is actually going on this side, or what do you do to help the client?
I generally don't try to reach a spirit. They just seem to come to me unless I'm doing a reading. And generally when I do the reading, things are taken care of and everybody's fine. So there isn't really anything to take care of on that end. If they come to me, if the spirit comes to me and I don't know who they're trying to reach, then I have to go through that arduous task of figuring it out, drawing things out, writing things out, posting it all over Twitter or Instagram or Facebook or whatever. Hell, back when MySpace was on, I was doing that, just so I could find out who the message was to go to. And then we would deal with the situation at hand then. As far as cleansing, that is personal cleansing with saging and everything else for an individual if they need it. Incense, meditation work, if they need it. Most people don't, because generally the experiences are happy. With experiences that aren't happy, that is when you bring in reinforcements. Like I said, it took 2 of us to cleanse that house that we were at, and it isn't permanent. Has it dulled the activity? Yes, greatly. It has, thank heavens. Will we probably have to do it again? You betcha. And we hit every corner of that house. Every flipping corner of that house. Going through with particular words that I had written down, and Gwen had a copy of it as well. And she started at one area and I started at another, and we crossed each other going up and down the stairs and the whole kit and caboodle, just letting them know that this was not their home. Not anymore. So, and that's one of the biggest things that I tell people is if they're having issues in their home, they need to remember they do hold the power. This is their home. This person might have lived here, or they might be attached to it in some way or another. But you do hold all the cards. And you can put boundaries down. And it does work. Because in most cases, again, in most cases, you are dealing with a deceased human being. They understand.
What if they don't know they're dead?
Well, then that's when you get somebody like me and we have a chat. Or you talk to them yourself.
But that's a serious question, though. Because there's a lot of groups out there who will say, because we are so scientific, look at our lab coats that we do not have on. We don't use psychic mediums because they can taint an investigation.
Oh, bless them. Yeah, most of the teams out there, yes, can be like that. And I will admit I have had to prove some people wrong. And that's okay, because I don't get offended. Question every damn thing I say. I've said it before. I'll say it 100 times more. I don't care. But when I'm right, I'm right. And when somebody else like myself is right, they're right. And we do have a purpose. We have abilities and things that we can do. And communication is key when it comes to something like this. And that's what a lot of people don't realize. If they don't want to use somebody like myself, or they don't want to use somebody that has more of a spiritual outlook and a way to help the family or the deceased move on, or for another matter, cohabitate. But I can't say this too loud because my son's here, but I ain't alone in this place. I can't tell you how many of them I got walking around in here, but they don't bother me. We cohabitate, So, I mean, if they're not willing to use something like that, then that's a huge downfall. It's a huge downfall to the community. For those who do utilize those particular talents, they are a lot less likely to have recurrent problems. Or the people that they investigate for are a lot less likely to have recurrent problems. And that's the truth.
Question from Mark at hashtag Spaced Out Radio on Twitter. He is asking, Vanessa, how do you know if a home needs work, or do they all need work?
Well, honestly, I mean, I can drive past a place or something like that, and I can know something's there. But here's the thing: just because a spirit's there doesn't mean that it needs to go anywhere. You know, I mean, there are many cases where a spirit can be in a location and have no idea that a living person is there, and vice versa. So the only time, I never make assumptions. The only time I will say a place needs work is if I am intimately involved with the investigation. Like I'm there and I know that it needs help, or if I am asked to help. You know, there have been times on Twitter where different teams post pictures and I see it and I get a read on it. And so I'll send it to send the read to them privately, like on a DM or something. If they need help, I'll give it. If they don't, that's okay. You know, but it's good to not make assumptions, because in all honesty, a lot of times the living and the deceased can cohabitate. We really can, and never get in each other's way.
I hear you there, because there is answers for absolutely everything. And it's a matter of whether or not the spirit lets you know. I know in my house we have activity. I know in my yard I've met the ghost in my yard. And he specifically is adamant, I don't come inside. I like it out in the yard. So we let him stay there. He keeps the... Here's a funny story. A few days after I met up with him, and I was having a conversation with him through a psychic medium, Angela Dixon, who happened to channel him while we were on the air. Anyhow, I asked him a point-blank question after the show. I said, I need you to do me a favor if you're going to stick around. He's like, what's that? I said, I need you to make sure that no predator animals come into my yard. And his response was, isn't that what you have a dog for? And then my response was, the dogs are inside. And I explained about the children and that we didn't want any animals getting attacked. A couple weeks later, my wife watches out of our living room window a bear saunter over the fence from the neighbor's yard, pause, and then run like a bat out of hell to get out of our yard.
That's awesome.
And she said it was the weirdest thing. Something spooked it. Well, the dogs were inside, and I don't think the dogs barking inside would scare it enough. Okay, the neighbor's dog, which is a vicious bastard, he was nowhere to be found, and this bear was, poof, gone. Absolutely gone.
I think that is fabulous. I love that. You know,
but it's about. But I tell that story because, Vanessa, it's exactly what you just said. It's about finding that common ground, isn't it?
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. And like I said, I mean, that's because they're people. You know, when you pass away, how do you want to be treated? I wish every single paranormal investigator, psychic medium, hoo-ha gadget carrying, wannabe would actually ask themselves that. If they were deceased and they wanted to communicate, how would they want to be treated by the person trying to communicate with them? Would they want to be treated with respect, compassion, empathy, friendness, kindness? Would they want those things? If the answer to all of those is yes, then try it. Because one of these days, it will be one of us. One of these days, somebody is going to try to talk to me after I'm dead. And knowing what I know now, they better be sweet, Dave. They better be sweet.
You can come chat with me anytime, because I think there's a bunch of us that are smitten with your Southern Belle accent.
Oh, y'all. Oh, I love you.
As we bat our eyelashes and swoon over your dulcet tones.
Well, and you know what's sad? Is I wasn't certain for sure if y'all would be able to see me, so I actually put on makeup. I don't ever wear that shit.
Well, this is live radio, and as someone who has a face for radio like I do, okay, and a voice for print. I'm very happy that you put on makeup for radio. That makes me feel good. I want to get to Gloria's question here in the SOR Space Travelers Club, if you wouldn't mind.
I don't mind one bit.
And she is asking, Vanessa, what was your first possession or channeling experience like? Did you invite it in, or was it without permission? How did you feel afterwards?
Oh, this is a good one. Okay, some people have heard this story. I've actually written about it in my books. It was horrible, and I will tell you why. I was 13, and it was Halloween night. And me and 6 of my friends were going to spend the night at another friend's house. And, of course, we're all, creepy girls, and if y'all didn't catch that, there was 7 of us, and we were all 13. So, yeah, this is going to get fun, right? It's Halloween night, and we go to the cemetery, and we're walking around. And, of course, I'm hearing everybody talking, that's buried and such. And I'm listening to my friends, and they're sitting there, talking about, well, I bet this person, died of this and this. And I'm sitting there thinking in my head, that wasn't it. That's not how they went. But I didn't say anything, because I couldn't. Well, we get back to the friend's house. And we all decide for some reason that we're going to put each other in trances. And I got chosen to go first. So me and one of my friends sat on the floor right by the front door. I don't know why, but Indian style. And that's pretty much where it stops for me. And when I come to, I am being slapped across the face, I don't know how many times, I guess trying to snap me out of whatever I was in. And I see the other girls, they've picked up the cooler full of Cokes. And these are full Cokes and a cooler full of ice. And 3 girls are dumping it over the girl that I was supposed to be putting in a trance because she was having a seizure. And she does not have a history of that, nor did she have any after that. They said that as soon as I made eye contact with her, that I didn't blink for 30 minutes and that she started to seize up. So from that point on, I was the scary girl. And I for the most part, lost any close friends I would have that I had. I lost them all. They would speak to me when they had to, not at me in the hallway, but there were no slumber parties after that. There was no close girlfriends after that. And the girl that happened to came into a bar I was working at when I was 18. So this is 5 years later. I was 18 and I was working in Cafe Chicago in Wichita, Kansas, a little sports bar. And she came in there and she sought me out and she apologized. And I said, well, it was very hurtful, but I understand. And she just said that it wasn't, that she couldn't explain basically what was in my eyes. And it did what it did to her. So from that point on, that's when I, hopped back in that broom closet for quite a while. And then I didn't let that happen. Now, talk about a blocking. Man, I blocked like you wouldn't believe, as much as I possibly could, for over a decade. Over a decade before I would let anything out again. It was awful.
What happens if your child comes in and says, Mom, I saw something?
Honey, why do you think I came out of the broom closet? Yeah, that's my son. My son was seeing things when he was very young. And I was not going to let him feel alone. And so I took all those fears and all those insecurities of everybody thinking, that I'm evil. And I just threw those away. Because then it's about my kid. So I said, you know what? This is me. And I'm going to accept this, warts and all, And if people don't like it, that's okay. I'm not here to please everybody else. I'm here to take care of my kid.
Do you feel guilty for some sort of responsibility that you have for passing that on to your child? And the reason why I ask, and we only got about 90 seconds left, my daughter inherited her depression and anxiety from me And I absolutely feel horrible about that.
I would feel guilty if I was choosing to ignore it, because my son would have this regardless. So if I was going to be an irresponsible parent and choose to ignore the things that he sees or feels or whatever, and granted, it's not, he's not up there where I am yet, thank heavens. But if I chose to ignore it, I would feel guilty. But I don't. I embrace it. My child, has me to talk to no matter what. And I'm here for him. And that's all that matters.
And keeping that open line of communication, because my daughter, who has depression and anxiety, is also highly intuitive. She just hasn't come into her own yet at 17, and I'm sure it'll be a few years before she fully accepts it. But keeping that open line of communication is just so important for children, so that children know they aren't crazy.
Exactly. It's very important for children to know they're not crazy, because I went the majority of my young adult life thinking I was absolutely certifiable. So I couldn't let that happen to him.
I'm going to get you to hold on, Vanessa, as we are just a few seconds away from going to a break here on Space Out Radio, our final break of the night. And we really appreciate it. You are filling in just magnificently. A plethora of good answers from Vanessa Hogle. She is all over YouTube, Facebook. She's a queen of the social media. And we got her for one more hour here on Spaced Out Radio. We'll be right back after this.
The SOR Sightlines is a place for you to find answers to your strange experiences. Hi there, this is Mike Schmidt. If you have had an encounter with ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot, ETs, or anything else that doesn't make sense, head to spacedoutradio.com and file a Sightlines report. All information you give is 100% confidential, and I will personally help you find the answers you need. SOR Sightlines, your answers are a click away.
Greetings and salutations, space travelers, from the Chronicles of the Unknown team.
What is Chronicles of the Unknown? I keep hearing about this thing.
It's a new paranormal reality TV show based right here in beautiful British Columbia, Canada. Follow our team as we uncover claims of activity on the Caribou Gold Rush Trail. You can also follow us here every third Monday, where two members of our team will be available to answer your questions. We'll give you some equipment updates and some of our experiences on the road, right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4 Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
This is your medium, Joanna, from Spaced Out Weekend, 2 mediums and a large. I would love it if you would come and join us with host James Tyson every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. Together, we will take your calls and your questions live. Our goal is to provide you with a positive outlook on deep questions that you may have. Questions regarding love, relationships, money, or whatever else is on your mind. Come and check us out at spacedoutradio.com.
Have you checked out the SOR Spacewire at spacedoutradio.com yet? Every day we post the latest stories regarding the weird, strange, and completely unbelievable. From cryptid and UFO sightings to the conspiracy world, we tackle it all. Hi there, I'm Eric Markham, Space Out Radio's news director for the SOR Spacewire. And if you have a story, I want to hear it. Email me at news@spacedoutradio.com.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Every month on Spaced Out Radio, we look into the deep and dark reports of cryptids roaming around the world with me, Rob Morphy, from Cryptopia.us. I would love it if you would join me and host Dave Scott as we delve into the most arcane stories and reports regarding creatures of the unknown. My job is to hunt down the details and bring the evidence forward to you. These aren't your regular Bigfoot stories I'm talking about either. You can find out more about crypto history at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
Would you like to connect with us on Spaced Out Radio? Head to spacedoutradio.com to check out the latest shows, guests, and sponsors. And don't forget to sign up for the Space Travelers Club. You'll find all you need at spacedoutradio.com. Checking the NORADSanta.org website, Santa Claus has awakened from his restful sleep. He is getting ready to prep for takeoff. I'm so excited right now. I have goosebumps thinking about this. I love this time of year. Make sure you all have a Merry Christmas out there. Yes, old Davy is not politically correct. I will say Merry Christmas to everyone out there. I hope you enjoy your holiday with your family. If you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Do us a favor. Visit freedomslips.com and donate today. Thank you to everyone listening in on the United Public Public Radio Network, live on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 150 countries around the world. Good to have you along for this paranormal circus as well. Bill Cardwell has set the password in the SOR Space Travelers Club tonight. Dermatoheteroplasty. Dermatoheteroplasty is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, and if you could put it in a sentence, I want to see it. Hit me up on social media with that one. I would appreciate it. Bill Cardwell sets a password each and every night right here for you SOR Space Travelers. Remember, there is no Spaced Out weekend this weekend or next weekend because of the way the holidays land, so it'll be 3 weekends from now before we get to hear James Tyson and Elizabeth Anglin back on Spaced Out Weekend. That'll be the weekend of January 7th and 8th. They do feel sorry, but they'd like to spend some time with family and friends over the holidays, and really, I don't blame them. So make sure you check it out on January 7th. I will be back on Monday, the 26th, with Butch Witkowski for his monthly segment, Strange Days. If you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, John Porter on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. You just cracked me up. On Instagram, you can follow me at Dave Scott SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show, and our website is spacedoutradio.com. Don't forget, you can tune us in on TuneIn and download this show and others from iTunes as well. We bring back Vanessa Hogle into Spaced Out Radio tonight. We've been talking paranormal all night, the good, the bad, the ugly. Vanessa, welcome back.
Hello.
Hello. Good to have you with us. Appreciate you taking the time.
I appreciate you having me on. I'm having a blast.
This is an important hour. Oh, we've just got an update from NORADSanta.org. Mrs. Claus has officially prepared a hearty meal for Santa Claus's journey.
Oh, wow.
I am pumped right the F up right now. I don't know why I get so excited about this, but I do. I was
getting cold because I was naughty.
Well, that doesn't surprise me with that Southern Belle accent. I can see you getting in a lot of trouble with that.
It does get me into a pickle.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I can totally see that. Right before the break, we were talking about children and the importance of being open and honest and upfront with your children in regards to paranormal activity, what they see, what they don't see, what they are experiencing. You being a mother of a son who sees things, me being a dad of a daughter who sees things, and even my little guy is starting to see things, how important is it for us as parents or any parent out there to recognize that it isn't an imaginary friend, or it isn't just a play on words that a child is trying to get attention?
It's extremely important. Very, very, very important. And I'll tell you why. In many cases, as we grow older, we lose our, not naivete, but we lose our innocence. We lose our openness to be able to communicate or to be able to receive messages from those who have passed on. Children still have that. And if you let them be themselves, let them receive those messages, let them share them with you, you'd be amazed what you'll find out from your relatives who are deceased. A lot of times they'll communicate through the children. And for people who have a difficult time, where they haven't been able to communicate with somebody that they've loved who has passed on, they don't realize that they might have missed a message. They might have missed some type of interaction, whether it's from your animal, who is extremely perceptive to spirits in close proximity, or to a child. That they are like your barometers, so to speak, for paranormal activity in your home or surrounding areas. They let you know. And we really do need to start listening, because I think we're missing out on a lot by trying to push it away or trying to discount it like so many people do.
Do you think children are naturally intuitive, or do you think that it's just the gift that comes with maybe a family lineage?
I think children are naturally intuitive. And it's, it's proven time and time again, because there are plenty of people who don't have or don't acknowledge that they have these type of gifts, curses, whatever you want to call it, or they might have had it when they were young and then grew out of it for whatever reason. Maybe it wasn't nurtured, who knows? But most children, I have yet to come into contact with one that doesn't have some type of ability. And I believe it's inherent to us. I really do. I think it's something that we're born with, that we either embrace, acknowledge, and eventually accept, or it's something that we push down into the deepest recesses of our soul and pray like hell that nobody knows it's there.
So your advice to parents then, who are either A, closed-minded, or B, do not know how to accept the intuition that their child has, what is your advice?
My advice is to listen. Listen. If you're concerned about communication, write down what they're telling you. You know, give them a notebook and some crayons and have them draw out what they're seeing. You know, kids are very open when it comes to stuff like that, and they want to share it. And it's important to help them grow as individuals. If you have a child who knows that they can come to you, whether you believe what they're saying or not, but if they know they can come to you, if they know that they can speak freely with you about things that they have in their heart or in their mind, if you let them do that, regardless of your own personal beliefs, and they feel comfortable doing that, you're one step further. You're one step ahead in raising a well-rounded, empathetic, sympathetic, compassionate, moral child, because they're comfortable. They're comfortable in something that most adults shy away from, and it builds confidence. And that's something that is so lacking in so many children out there. You can have a child that if they have these type of experiences when they're very young, and they don't have an outlet, they don't have a way to share that and to make any sense of it, or they begin to feel they're like a freak, then it can cause any number of problems. They can start acting out. They can become sullen. They can become depressed. There were many times, and I've spoken openly about this, so I don't mind saying it on here. I've written blogs about it. It's been in my book. There were many times when I was a young girl, you know, over the age of 13 by this time, where I just wanted to die. I mean, I really did. And I tried a couple times. Thank heavens I wasn't successful. I put myself in horrible situations. I had unbelievably low self-esteem. I didn't feel accepted on any level. And there is no worse feeling in the world than to feel like you are completely alone. So why would you do that to your child? Especially a young one, you know, who's just starting out, and they have hope and wonder, and their innocence it's like gold, you know, and you want to hold them and comfort them and care for them and protect them, but you also want them to grow, and they can't grow without confidence.
I understand that, but there is also the mainstream theory that my child shouldn't be acting like this. So I take my child to the doctor. The doctor then runs a bunch of psychological tests, maybe sends the child to a psychologist or a psychiatrist or a counselor. Medication is then usually prescribed because children shouldn't be talking to dead people no matter what age they are. And there is always some kind of prescribed help for that. So how does a parent recognize then that it is intuition compared to, say, something of a psychological problem?
Well, I'm actually glad you asked that, because being a dental assistant and having worked in pediatrics for 10 years, I know a little bit about medication because I worked on children who were part of a government insurance program. They were the lesser served, so to speak. And I know exactly how many kids out there have a high chance of being put on medication because people don't understand what they're going through. And that it's a very fine line. It's a very fine line. Children are extremely over-medicated in many situations, and I have such a problem with that. But again, it comes down to something so basic. Take your personal beliefs of what you think is possible out of the equation. Just because you don't believe it doesn't mean it isn't true. If your child comes to you and they can describe a grandmother that they've never met, and they can tell you things that she said that there's no way they could have known. There is no amount of medication in the world that is going to be prescribed that can make that child feel any better than a parent or a loved one sitting down with them and actually listening. You know, ADHD medication doesn't fix being psychic. It stifles everything that we have in us when it comes to something like that. If it's needed for a medical condition, that's fine. But if it's used as a tool to shut a child up, instead of allowing them to express themselves in a way that others might be made uncomfortable by, you know, like this, then it's just wrong. And to me, it's abusive. And it's a responsibility as a parent to know the difference. Educate yourself. If you're concerned about it, find somebody to talk to before you medicate your child on that.
But a lot of parents don't believe in what we are dealing with on a daily basis. Remember, we're fringe. Sure, they may have seen a ghost. Sure, they may have seen a UFO in the sky. But they aren't used to the idea of being so closely tied to those type of experiences.
I don't think it's that they're not so used to being closely tied to it, because a lot of the parents we're talking about watch Ghost Adventures. So they know. I think it makes them uncomfortable because it's in their home. Now, a parent being uncomfortable shouldn't dictate whether or not their child has to get medicated. So there's no fast and easy answer, but it does lie in the fact that people need to listen to their children, educate themselves on what's going on, talk to your kid. It is that simple. You know, I mean, when your kid tells you something and you know for a fact it's true, but you know there's no way they could have known about it. I mean, your uncomfortableness doesn't mean shit to me. You know, listen to your kid. And that's where it comes, that's what it boils down to, is listening to your kids. You don't have to believe it. You don't have to like it. But you have to understand that it is a possibility. And when they're telling you stuff they have no way of knowing, like I said, I mean, there's no medication in the world going to fix that. It'll just stifle it.
I got a couple questions here from our audience for you as we continue on. This one comes from #SpacedOutRadio on Twitter. The question comes from John, and he is asking, Vanessa, have you ever helped out any police forces with any of their cases?
Yes, actually I have. There was a gentleman who contacted me. I say gentleman, he was deceased. I was at work. I was working in Lawton, Oklahoma. I was traveling for the dental office that I worked for. And I was working at their Lawton office. And he came to me, not in front of me like they sometimes do, but he was in my head. And he showed me a picture of himself. And he is a very attractive African-American man. He had on a bright yellow shirt, like one of those little polo short sleeve ones. And he was in a park setting, very green leaves around him. It's a really nice picture. Very happy. And I saw that picture in my head. And I got a call about an hour later from a woman I know whose husband is a police officer. And she said, Vanessa, I need you to come over or something like that night, talk to her husband because they had a missing persons case. And I said, okay, I already know who you're talking about. And because not because I knew when the guy came to me, but when I got the call from her, I made the connection. Okay. And so the rest of that day, I got the information that I got from him just, in my head. And it was really weird because it was back and forth. It was like 20 to 30 years in between images that he would send me. And so I went that night, and I spoke to her husband, who's a police officer, and he took me around because I already had my drawings drawn out of what I saw, of how he was laying on the ground, where he was at, everything else. And they ended up finding him where I said, and he was in the position that I said he was. And the person that had something to do with his disappearance was the person that I drew in the other picture. And they were able to explain to me something that I didn't know. And the reason that my images were so weird and so many decades apart was because he had Alzheimer's. And I was getting images from his past, because in most Alzheimer's patients, they lose their current memory and not their long-term memory. At least not, around that time that he was in. But so he still had his long-term memory. And so I was seeing those images, and then the other snippets was of right before he disappeared. And so, yes, I mean, on that case, and then I have spoken with others and consulted on cases. Yes, I can't disclose.
No, and I can understand why you can't disclose. But what is it like to be working with police officers where they are at such a standstill in their own case that they are now searching for any type of recurring evidence or fresh lead, and this is where you would come in?
It's absolutely terrifying, because nothing's worse. There's almost no worse feeling when you're doing something like this than the absolute terror that you're going to be wrong. And especially if you're talking about a missing persons, it's different than an unsolved murder. At that point, you already have a body. You already have something tangible that you can connect with and get information off of. But when you're talking about a missing person, you've got a 50-50 shot that person's still out there. And if the feeling you're getting is that they're not, and you lead the police in the wrong direction, then you've increased the missing person's chances of never being found. Or by the time they're found, they've passed on. And so it's probably the most stressful thing you can imagine when it comes to something like that. I have to be honest with you, it's not my favorite thing to do. Not by a long shot, because I'm absolutely terrified that I'm going to be wrong. And if that makes me sound, like I don't know what I'm doing, okay, I'll take it. I would rather be honest about it. I could come in here like, so many other psychics or mediums or what have you, and act like I know everything in the world. Fact of the matter is, if somebody ever acts that way to you, like they know everything, run. Put your shoes on, get those Nikes going, get the hell out of there, because nobody is that good. And if they were, I'm a little bit scared of them, because odds are they ain't human. But it is something that really does, it hits home for me. It scares me, and it is probably the time when I feel like I have the least control over what I'm doing.
Have you ever worked on cases where the person was still alive?
No. Don't I wish? Oh, no, hold it. Let me take that back. I sure did. Oh, I forgot. That was years ago. That was in Chicago. I mean, I was still in Oklahoma. But, and that was it was like loosely tied to the police. It wasn't directly with them, but it was a young girl. And actually, it's two cases, one here and one in Chicago. And totally separate cases, over a decade apart. But yeah, both were found alive, thank heavens. And they thought that they were abductions when they were actually runaways. and I drew the people that they were with.
Well, at least it was a happy ending. I do have a question from Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. He is asking, as a fellow Wiccan, How do you feel about drawing down the moon as per possession?
I am real weird when it comes to how I do things. I am limited in how much magic I use. I tend to stick strictly with spell casting. I don't even hardly ever cast a circle. I don't keep a spell book. I don't keep a book of shadows. When I use one, I use it once and it's gone and it gets burned. And I do candle magic, and that is primarily where I lay, and crystals. I don't draw down. I don't do any of that because it just is when I've done that in the past, it tends to be more than I can handle, if that makes sense. So I like to keep it simple.
Getting back to the paranormal for a moment here, I'm very curious about what you feel, and it's been a very big pet peeve of mine on this show for a number of months, but I like to ask the views of a lot of paranormal people who we have on this show, is the perception of opinion versus science. There's a lot of people in this field who believe that they are conducting scientific experimentation. However, it's their opinion that seems to rule or overrule any type of evidence or understanding. What is your perception of the use of science in the paranormal?
I think it's absolutely acceptable to use science in the paranormal. I mean, the fact of the matter is our government did it. I mean, they have used remote viewing. They have used telekinesis, telecommunication. That's not a secret. So if people want to bring science into the paranormal community, I don't have a problem with it one little bit, as long as they understand science is based on fact. So if you're going to do that, then you need to have facts. You can have hypotheses, but you also need to eventually have facts. And in science, opinion plays no part. You can't have, an opinion is not fact. My opinion is not fact. Your opinion is not fact. But if something if it has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it makes sense and it can be proven, whether, depending on what it is, if you want to bring science into it, I don't have a problem with it at all. But you gotta know what the definition of science is. And science is an opinion. And it sure as hell is an ego and getting pissed off because somebody doesn't agree with you.
Do you think the term is thrown around a little too loosely in the paranormal field?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, if people want, to bring science into it, then, they need to educate themselves a little bit more on it, plenty of scientists have opinions on paranormal, and, a lot of them believe in it because, they have experiences, they know certain things, certain experimentations that have been done, and they have a little bit more knowledge in it than we give them credit for. But, regular Joe Blow, and it's funny because I put Joe Blow before, and Joe on our feed on Facebook was like, I don't blow. But the general Joe Blow out there isn't a scientist. So don't call yourself one. I mean, what do they say in that Working Girl? I might dance around in my underwear like Madonna. Doesn't make me Madonna, never will. Same thing. I'm not a neurosurgeon. I know a little bit about the brain, but I'm not going to call myself a neurosurgeon. If you're going to call yourself something, have the evidence, the education, and the other things that make that up to back it up. Don't just put it on there because it's a nice buzzword.
I understand that, but the way I look at it, and Eric Markham from the SOR Spacewire, he is our resident scientist here around these parts. And him and I have talked about this very, very often. The problem that we have and what we see in the paranormal is that a lot of people who are in this field really haven't conducted anything scientific since grade school.
Mm-hmm.
And for them to lead on that they are conducting scientific research, to me, is a failing grade and to Eric as well, more so to him because he does have his bachelor's of science, works in the medical field, okay? And it's a little bit degrading that they would loosely use the term. So
Exactly.
I'm wondering where all these people are all of a sudden coming up with all this scientific education to do scientific study.
They're not coming up with it. That's the thing. If they want to and they want to educate themselves and maybe have a scientist on their team, great. But for the most part, it's a buzzword. Honestly, it really is. I don't have a problem with science in the paranormal field. Matter of fact, I encourage it if it's done right. But if it's being used as a buzzword to get people's attention or to sound more credible, then no, they just sound like a douche. Sorry. It's a true story.
Well, we have gone on there. We can go on that angle, because most people, I believe then, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, do you think they're only doing it to try and bring some sort of false or faux credibility to their group?
Absolutely. Without a doubt. That's the thing is, I guess you could make the argument that certain pieces of equipment could lend a scientific view to certain things. You could make that argument, but unless you're a scientist doing it, then the argument is moot. It doesn't make any sense to me. Like I said, I'm not a scientist. I'm not going to claim to be one. So therefore, any work that I do isn't scientific. Do you understand what I mean?
I know exactly what you're saying, but could it be then, playing devil's advocate, that a lot of these paranormal teams are using that word because that's their hope and their way of maybe trying to bring this more to the mainstream so that real scientists and real mainstream researchers would take their information a little bit more credible?
I would love it if that was the case. And not necessarily to make their evidence more credible, but to bring attention to the field so that maybe more scientists would become involved, if that is what the goal is. If there absolutely has to be proof. But I think more people, like I said, just use it for a buzzword. It makes them sound important. And it's like I said, so much of this field is about public perception and like I said, stated before, how many likes you get, how many views on your video, different things like that, instead of being about what it's supposed to be about. And that's about the deceased and the living. So, and I don't mean the living as in the investigators. I mean the living as in the people that you're trying to help. So, when it comes right down to it, if they're doing it for the right reasons and they're trying to get attention from the scientific community so that the scientific community can become involved, I'm all for it. If they're doing it just so they can sound more credible, no, again, like I said, hashtag douche, can't get on board.
So when you have people coming up to you, and you have your own show with Mike Ricksecker, who has been a guest on this show, and Mike is an incredible researcher and author in his own right.
Yes.
When you have people in your chat rooms or guests come on and they start saying, well, we provide scientific-based theories on what is happening, what do you respond to them with?
Luckily enough, sorry, I'm exhaling there. Yes, I'm smoking. Luckily enough, that has actually not happened. And I don't know if it is because Mike and I are very, I'm trying to think of the best way to put it. We don't hold back. We're like you. If there's something that I don't necessarily agree with, I'm going to call you out on it. I'm going to ask you about it, and ask you why you're putting it that way. And so would Mike, we haven't necessarily had that come up. If we do, I can guarantee you I will ask them, well, why is it scientific? What makes it scientific? And when they give me the answer, then I will have them explain that, and so on and so forth. Because, again, science is non-negotiable. It's non-negotiable. And it is what it is. Science is based on fact. So unless you have fact, it is not science. Period. As far as I'm concerned.
So, in your opinion, then, what do we have to do in order to take this research and get it into more of a scientific level?
Need to be honest about what we're getting. That's the kicker. You just opened up a Pandora's box, honey, and you don't even know it. There are teams in England that I know of personally who the majority of their evidence is fake. True story. The majority of their evidence is fake. There is a thing that you can do with an EVP recorder, and I encourage everybody to, when they're watching videos on YouTube or on TV even, you know, when they're watching any of these shows, I encourage you, look for one main thing, and that is, actually two main things. We're just going to go there. If they don't put their EVP recorder down, look for that, because there's a thing that you can do that's called, it's either called thumbing or rubbing, and it doesn't make a noise out loud, but you take your thumb and you rub it across the side of the EVP recorder, and guess what it does? It gives you EVPs. It gives you sounds that are not normal to the environment. It gives you things that can sound like somebody walking, and that is something that is extremely important. Watch to see if they put their EVP recorder down. If it never leaves their hand, question every damn EVP they get. I'm just saying. And the other thing is listen. Listen between when they do the EVPs and when they go back to replay the EVPs. Listen for the length of time between when they finished asking the question and the EVP happened. Because generally speaking, when you're watching one of those shows, when they're asking an EVP, the majority of the EVPs that you will hear, you know, on the recorder, generally the audience will hear, or the guys that are sitting there holding the EVP recorder will hear it, and you'll see them look up and like, did you hear that? And then they'll go back and they'll listen. Okay, so if they just finish asking that question and boom, they're looking around, did you hear that? And then they play back the EVP recorder and it takes twice as long to get to that same situation, it's fake. It's an imprinted EVP. So I know at least one, possibly two, very big teams in Europe that fake 90% of their evidence, if not more. And I have that from one of their previous investigators.
I have a question from Ron Moniak. Sometimes he's caught wearing a watermelon on his head to support the football team that he cheers for.
Go Ron!
Yeah. That's what happens when you live in the lonely part of Canada. He is asking, Vanessa, what do you think with the plethora of untrained, inexperienced paraknockers invoking that negative dark side? Does this complacency to the potential dangers empower the acceptability of the dark side as evil gaining a foothold?
Well, that is an excellent question, and I'm so glad he asked it, because hell yes, it does. Yes, it does. I have a big problem with a lot of that. Again, it goes along with the antagonizing of spirits, the instigation of trying to get a spirit to attack you, which you will see that a lot on TV, and you'll see it a lot on YouTube. Let's just face it. Those people that I heard some dude, I don't even know what his name is, but likes to bleed over his Ouija board. You know what? When they come after you, don't come calling to me. That's what I tell these people. I'm like, you know what you're doing? Because I know what you're doing. And it is not good. It causes a lot of trouble, especially if they're doing things like that on an investigation in a residence, and then they're leaving that, like you and I talked about before, for the people that live there to deal with afterwards. It takes a really stupid person, and yes, I said that publicly, to think that they have got the cojones to deal with what they can invoke. And I have no sympathy for them. I know exactly what can happen. I choose not to partake in it, and I've had to clean up the mess from it. So it makes me very angry when I see and hear about people doing that.
Mm-hmm. So do you think that they are purposely trying to invoke, or do you think that they are just so brave that they haven't had anything negative happen to them? And once again, it all comes down to the experience.
Oh, I think brave doesn't have nothing to do with it. I think brave has nothing to do with it. It goes back to what we were talking about in the last segment, or the segment before, is everybody wants to come into contact with the demon. Okay, well, good luck with that. Because when you do, it's the last thing you ever want to happen again. But people, they don't take it seriously enough. That's part of the problem. We're so desensitized that they don't take something like that serious enough. And hell, forget demons. You could have somebody who was a extremely violent, mean person in life and is an extremely violent, mean person in death. And trust me, they can hurt you. That I know. That has happened as well. And it's not something, that I enjoyed by any stretch of the imagination. So people do that not out of bravery, but out of stupidity. Really.
I can see that. So what is the whole demon thing then? Do you think it's just one of those next level popularity models of the paranormal that they feel they need to get on out? Because everybody always has to try and take things to that next level.
Yeah, I think you're pretty much hitting the nail on the head right there. Is for whatever reason, many in the paranormal community don't consider speaking to an actual deceased person important enough. They don't think they're going to get enough credit for it. They don't think they're going to get enough notoriety for it. If it isn't impressive, nobody's going to care, which means their name's not going to get out there. And, if I'm pissing people off, I'm real sorry, but I'm not. Fact of the matter is, I'd rather people be talking to, somebody's grandmother. I would, instead of trying to invoke something like that. I think that's where our answers lie. People think our answers lie in the strange and the unusual and the violent and the untouchable and the otherworldly, when in fact they lie in our compassion for each other. That's where our answers are. That's where we need to be focusing on. We want answers to what happens, after we pass. We want life after death questions answered. They're not going to be answered by a demon. They're going to be answered by somebody who has lived and who has died. And that's what I wish people would finally get in their heads.
What is the role, in your opinion, as someone who is part of the alternative media, much like we are? What should be the role of the alternative media then?
The role of the alternative media, of course, is going to be to somewhat entertain, because I like to think I'm entertaining, But, and I know you are, Dave. Y'all are greatly entertaining. But our main role is to have the discussions that they won't have on mainstream TV. Our main role is to educate, enlighten, encourage, and hopefully find some semblance of normality in something that is paranormal, in hopes that we can all come together as an entire field and try to progress, because we have become so stagnant. We have become so bogged down by image and popularity that we forget, and I think that that's really what our roles are. That's what I've tried to do with my books. That's what Mike and I do with our show. That's what you seem to be doing with your show, is trying to get opinions in there and get a discussion going. And we can all learn something from each other, but we got to be willing to listen and to absorb what the other person is saying. And I think that's our main role. I think that's what we're supposed to be doing.
Do you believe then that there is too many people trying to do it, trying to give out that same message, but because they aren't trained, because they aren't whatever, You know, I'm trying to draw a very fine line with what I'm asking here, because I don't want to make it sound like we are holier than thou, you know, because that's not what it's about. But do you think that the alternative media, with what we are talking about now, is a little oversaturated?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, there's a lot of it out there, yes. But I don't want to say that it's oversaturated, because there might be that one show that makes a breakthrough. So if people are wanting to connect and communicate and, like I said, encourage and enlighten and share experiences, then I wouldn't care if there was a million different shows out there like this, as long as their purpose is pure in what they're wanting to do. Do we have some out there that don't? Absolutely. You know, but I mean, hell, we got that in mainstream media. So, I mean, I wouldn't discourage anybody from wanting to do something like this as far as a show goes. What I would encourage them is to do it responsibly, and to carry themselves in a manner that benefits the field, instead of putting that negative cast on it.
I get the feeling that it's too much, because, and I'll give my opinion on this, it's too much because we have too many people out there who are trying to get the same message out. And when you have too many people out there, it doesn't allow for people to rise to the top, because everybody makes an emotional commitment. 10 people there, 50 people there, 100 people here. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't allow the cream to rise to the top as what should. Because once again, we have very talented people here who could probably, if they were lucky enough, make a living off of this. But because everyone and their dog can now do it, it's spread the audience so thin that the proper message, rather than the biased, opinionated message, has all become one. And there is no definition anymore.
Now, I see what you're saying. And I do agree with that to a certain extent. But what concerns me is knowing you and James and trusting y'all. I definitely see what you're talking about. But if I didn't know you, and if I didn't trust y'all, then I would worry that if it was limited, that it would be kind of like a monopoly. You know what I mean? That by not allowing others to get out there and do it, that we might miss that one show that actually would, like I said, make that breakthrough. So that's my only concern. It really is a tough question to answer, because there is no definite answer. You know, do we want the shows that do more damage than good to go away? Sure. Absolutely. But again, that falls on the listening and the viewing public.
But is it not about training? Because just like I'm not a trained paranormal investigator, okay, there are a lot of people out there who aren't trained in media skill.
True. Very true. But again, and I'm not disagreeing with you, but then again, it's such a fine line. You know, it's like writing a book. You know, anybody can write a book. Anybody can self-publish. But it's up to the viewing public and where they're willing to go to read those books, and are they willing to purchase them, and are they willing to purchase the author's next book because they believed or trusted what they said. You know, I mean, it's kind of like that. You know, at some point in time, it does fall on us as a people to decide if what we're hearing is bullshit or not. And I mean, I know I'm giving, you know, maybe a little bit too much credit to us as a public, you know, based on what I've seen on social media as of late. But I have to hope that at some point in time that we will not band together, but at least start to realize what that cream of the crop is, and begin to rise it to the top ourselves and weed out what we now know is not the best for us.
So what is the message that needs to be get across in the alternative media? Because what I see as a media guy, and we've talked about this numerous times on this show, what I see as a media guy is I see the mainstream going into straight ignorance about these topics, but I also see the alternative side now, instead of relaying the truth about what's going on, now getting more into the fear-mongering, getting more into the doom and gloom, which people had shied away from the mainstream from.
True. You're absolutely true. You're absolutely right on that. But the thing is, if they don't have viewers, it doesn't matter what they're saying. If they don't have listeners, it doesn't matter what they're saying. And that's where it becomes our responsibility. I honestly, you would think I would probably watch every YouTube thing or paranormal show out there. I don't. I don't. I mean, I because I know that so much of it is crap. That's my responsibility as a viewer and as a listener. You know, is if I've seen it once, I think it's crap. I know they're lying. I know that they're faking. They don't get my business. Period. That's my responsibility as a consumer, as a viewer, as a listener. And that's what the message that we need to get out there, both on your show, on mine and Mike's, and on so many others that are out there that are reputable. We need to get that message out there to educate the public so that maybe they won't lend their ears and their eyes to these shows that, like you said, are fear-mongering. That's what we need to do. Because you can put whatever you want out there, but if nobody's listening or watching it, doesn't matter. You can just be talking to dead air all night.
And some people are.
Damn straight.
Some people are. You know, all in all, as we only got about 6.5 minutes left with you tonight, this show has flown by.
It has.
Yes, it has. And it always does when we have a very, very strong guest. So thank you for being that for us and for our audience.
Oh, I've had so much fun. Thank you.
All in all, over the next few minutes, I want you to describe, if you had this magic wand that could change the paranormal field for the better, what would you like to see happen and what would you like to eliminate?
Okay, what I would like to, this is so easy. By the way, I made a wand tonight out of crystals. Anyway, what I would like to eliminate is the need for the fame, because I think that is the biggest thing, because it distorts so much. It makes people do things that they might not normally do. It makes them act out in ways that they might not normally act out. In turn, it really flaws their character, and that's sad. It's sad to see. So that's the main thing that I would like to eliminate, because so many things are encompassed in that. What I would like, if I could wave my wand right now and make something happen right now, it would be for people to find their humanity. That is what I want. It's what I so desperately want, and what I'm preaching all the time is to find that humanity and to treat this field with the respect that it needs, you know, so it gets the respect it deserves. Because the people that we're trying to help and the people that we're trying to communicate with deserve it. You know, they lived and they died and they had families and they had an existence and they made a mark. They made a mark on this world that we need to remember. You know, we need to remember it, you know, because there aren't history books written about these people, but they made contributions. We have so much to learn, so unbelievably much to learn from those who have passed before us, that if people would just realize that and find a way to put those people above themselves, then I think we might actually have a chance. That's really what I want. Don't remember my name. Don't remember what I do. Remember the people that I helped. That's what I want.
How clearly defined is that goal with the rest of the paranormal field, though? Do you find there's a lot of people who are similar with that?
I have found some, and I am unbelievably blessed to know them. And it's like I said, I think I said this in the first segment, I never in a million years thought that I would find the people that I have in my life now who are of the same ilk, who feel the same way and have the same goals. It's not in the forefront. It's not what a lot of people do. And like I said, that hurts my heart, but it is out there. There are people who do that. And as long as we have that, then I have hope.
And it's a fun hope, though, because as this trend in television starts to wind down, because once you hit television, unfortunately, it is the pinnacle, or mainstream radio, that is the pinnacle. With the trend that now the Ghost Hunters is off the air, and that was the granddaddy, do you see, maybe, to use the word trend again, do you see it finally maybe the beginning of the end of the popularity where the weekend warriors, the Pokemon ghosters are going to finally go away? Or do you see it just continuing but a whole new life, a whole new, brand new arm of the paranormal coming out?
Oh, I don't see it dying down at all. I don't. If anything, with social media the way that it is, with being able to be on YouTube and stuff, I actually see it probably becoming more saturated. And, you know, that can be a good and a bad thing. You know, like I said, I mean, for every 100 teams or people out there that don't do what they're supposed to be doing, there's one or two that do. And like I said, those are the ones that give me hope. But I don't see it going away. We'll have lulls. You know, this isn't our first rodeo. You know, I mean, this isn't the first time that you know, the paranormal has been in the mainstream. You know, it's just, you know, you go back 100 years, 150 years. I mean, you know, you had people talking about their experiences then and having seances and everything else. I mean, so this isn't new by any stretch of the imagination. The only thing that's new about it is how quickly you can get your name and your face out there. So I don't see it dying down simply because of that, really. It's too easy now to get stuff out there. So if anything, I actually see it becoming more saturated. I really do.
Well, we will soon see. Because the one thing that I will disagree with you on in that part is when the television networks finally say enough is enough, that the fad is over, and they will eventually decide that, then there's going to be a lot of people out a lot of money for all the gear and the technology that they've bought, because all of a sudden there's nowhere for them to end up. And everybody's trying for that paycheck, and YouTube does not pay when you have about 40,000 people posting paranormal channels on there.
That's, you know what, you very well could be right. You very well could be right, but there's still going to be a market for it. A little more of a black market, but there's still going to be a market. You've got the conventions, you've got everything else. People still get their names out there. I've seen a lot of questionable stuff on how people can make some money on this. So I think people are gonna be doing it for quite a while. But you very well could be right. And if you are, you call me out on it, because I'd love it. You give me the old.
I don't mind. Hey, give us about, as we start to wrap this up, give us about 30 seconds where people can find more information about you, your books, your YouTube channel.
Okay. Well, I'm Vanessa Hogle, _Pollard on Facebook. And on Instagram, I'm just Vanessa Hogle. You can see my mug right there. Although I do look better in pictures, so just bear with me. And on Twitter, I'm Vanessa R. Hogle. On YouTube, Vanessa Hogle. Haunted Road Media is me and Mike Ricksecker. Our show is Edge of the Rabbit Hole. My books are on Amazon, and the first one was Soulscapes. But be sweet about that, because that was my first. My second one was Giving Up the Ghost. Both are available on Amazon, and Walking with Ghosts will be out soon, and that will be available on Amazon as well, all under Haunted Road Media.
That's awesome. Vanessa, you hold on 1 second. I got to wrap this thing up. If you're listening on the Space Out Radio side, you are hearing Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal of Art of Anarchy, formerly of Guns N' Roses. He is our man, our myth, our music legend around these parts. He brings us in and takes us home out of every show with the official music of Spaced Out Radio. We want to remind you there is no Space Out weekend this weekend due to the holidays or the following weekend due to New Year's. So the next time you'll hear Jim and Elizabeth will be on January 7th. I will be back on Monday with Butch Witkowski. I want to say to everyone out there, have a safe and happy holidays. Merry Christmas to you all. It's a pleasure to be able to spend as much time as I do with all of you out there, including our new listeners in Twitterland. Appreciate it. Remember, our website is spacedoutradio.com. If you want to hear this show and others, just go to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show, tune in, or download our shows from iTunes. Merry Christmas. Santa Claus is about to launch on noradsanta.org. Get into the spirit, people. It's all about love and light. Have a good one.